two criteria that tell us when to buy a rental property. And it isn't what you think. I've heard from people I know, some of them friends for decades, here's when they're going to buy a rental. They saw that I purchased buy and hold real estate, and then I reached financial freedom, and I made work completely optional in about a little less than 10 years, even though I wasn't starting from the best position, which is what I'm trying to share with you so that you could do the same thing. Doesn't mean you have to quit work like I did. It means that you can make work optional. So maybe you can go for the job that you want instead of the job you have to have for money. But I have friends that have seen me do this. And I talk to them about maybe getting on the property ladder, buying their first rental. And they'll say things like, I'm going to wait for prices to crash. Which is the worst thing to do. First, no one knows when that's going to happen. People have been calling for that for over a decade. As soon as prices went back above where they were in 2008, people have said they're too high, they're unsustainable, and they've only gone up since then. People have said baby boomers, we're all going to retire, so there's going to be a flood of inventory and prices are going to drop. 2018, interest rates went above 6%. 2020, we have a moratorium, a pandemic, the world shuts down, and there's no crash. People are still calling for it. There are channels that have been calling for it for 2 years straight, every single week, making 1 or 2 videos saying, here's where the crash is coming. So they're still waiting. They haven't bought it. First, you're not going to know where the bottom is. So how far down is a crash before it's the crash? Or are you waiting for the crash to hit bottom? Don't catch a falling knife. When prices start to go down, lenders vanish. Right? The ability to borrow money goes away. And not just lenders sit back and go, wow, that asset class is not very good, we're not going to lend on it anymore. Their fear goes through the roof when prices start to go down, because who wants to lend a couple $100,000 on something that might be worth less value next year, and the person might walk away from the mortgage. So criteria gets stronger. Higher credit score requirement, lower debt to income ratio requirement. We saw in 2013 to 15, you can only have 4 mortgages, residential mortgages in your name. That was raised back up to 10 around 2018 or so. So the criteria to borrow gets harder. Lenders disappear. You might catch it on the way down. You might sit back and worry. And by the time you realize that it hit the bottom and it's on the way back up, now you're like, oh, it's gone the way up. I'm going to wait for the correction because they've come up from the bottom. So waiting for the crash isn't going to work. So other people will say, I'm going to wait for interest rates to come back down because we have short memories. And we realized that in the last couple of years, interest rates were down 2-3%. There were home buyers buying 2%. As an investor, I refinanced. I didn't do cash out refinance, but I refinanced properties to get a better cash flow at 3% interest. So our brain says that's probably going to happen again, but there's no guarantee that it will. And they might never be sub 5 again. They might be sub 5 in a month, but they might never be sub 5 again. So gambling on that happening, gambling on the crash, gambling on hoping, getting caught living on hopium, that rates come back down, means you're never going to buy. Then there's the crowd of, when I have enough cash to pay for it all cash, so the mortgage doesn't matter and I don't pay any interest. If I waited to pay all cash for my rentals, I would be just about the point where I could buy 1 2 years ago with the money I would have now before prices went up, and now I would be falling behind again. So unless you're making a couple of multiple 6 figures, saving for a property all cash in most areas isn't feasible. Maybe in a place where it's, $10,000 or $20,000 for a house, but what's the yield? What's the rent there? And why aren't people just buying if prices are that price there? So there's a few reasons why I tend to stay in a little more high cost of living area. The Dave Ramsey idea of saving to buy all cash, so you don't have a mortgage, or paying your mortgage off, really increases the timeline. Works out great for somebody who wants to retire in their 60s or 70s, but not for somebody who wanted to retire in 10 years or less. So saving all the cash is not the way for me. Then the worst one that I hear from people, I'm going to buy a rental property when I'm rich, right? That's what rich people do. They own rental properties. It's how they got rich. It's not what they did once they got there. Yes, there are some people who start and grow a company to a certain point, or have that one idea that does make a lot of money, or win the lottery, and then yes, 70% of them file bankruptcy within 5 years or so. But the people who became rich Like me, most of my life I made $40,000 to $50,000. Was a single parent with 3 kids. Last couple of years I made more money because I had gotten to a better position at the company I was at. But for most of my life, it was $40,000 or $50,000 a year. To become what I would call rich, better than rich, because rich is an amount of money that you can spend. Wealthy is an amount of money that is greater than it costs you to live, coming in every month that you don't have to work for. And that's where I'm at. I hit the 4X rule. So 4 times my income coming in that I don't have to get out of bed for. I do work about 2 hours a month, self-managing my 16 rentals, which is done through texts and emails. It's been years since I've actually had to go to a rental. I've gone a couple times because one time I wanted to make a video, but having to actually go and do something at a rental isn't something that's on my list of things to do. There are 2 criteria that dictate when you should buy your next rental or your first rental. And the first thing to realize is if some random guy on YouTube is telling you now is the time to buy or wait a year to buy, they're a moron and you shouldn't be listening to them. No one should tell you when to buy a rental. There's only 2 things that can tell you when to buy a rental, and neither of those 2 things is some random guy on YouTube. The 2 criteria. The first one is, to me, it's the most important. If you don't have this first one and you find the second one, don't buy the rental. The first one is, and it doesn't matter what's going on with the market, where the interest rates are, what the prices are, what the rents are, because all of that will calculate into yield, which, yes, can make a deal good or bad, but doesn't tell you if you're ready to buy it or not. The thing that tells you if you should buy a rental, the very first thing, write this down, 3 words. Are you ready? Think about what ready means. It doesn't mean you have the down payment, because if you have the down payment, do you have reserves? Do you qualify for a mortgage? Have you picked a market, picked a strategy? Do you have your searches set up? You're not ready if you've saved a down payment. That's a part of it. Do you have a life event going on that says right now would be a terrible time for you to do anything with investing? That's going to take the time and energy that real estate does. Because even though it works for a lazy person like me, there is stress involved. I don't think I've ever purchased a property where there wasn't some new thing where I sat back and I go, what the Fiji is this, and why am I dealing with it? And then I get through it and that rental turns out fine. But that stress is probably not a good time to add when you have divorce, death in the family, birth in the family, job change against your will, a couple of things that can happen in your life that can make you go, maybe this month is not the time I make a big financial decision and impact myself for hundreds of thousands of dollars with a 30-year commitment. Are you ready? That's emotionally, financially, mentally trained. Have you taken the time to educate yourself? So that's the most important thing to me. Don't buy a rental if you're not ready. And that doesn't, if you're ready, you buy it tomorrow. If you meet the second criteria too. If you're not ready, you don't buy it until you are. So that's the first one. Are you ready? The second one, this is the tricky one because you have to be able to define this. Most people can look at your life and say, you're not ready. You should start with therapy and then work out these things in your life and then build reserves, your capital. Even if you do things like want to invest with little or no money of your own, even Brandon Turner's book, How to Invest in Real Estate with Little or No Money, most of that talked about it not meaning that you don't have any money. It means that you're doing it without using your money. You should still have money for emergency and issues that are going to pop up you don't expect. So are you ready in all of the different ways? The second thing, this is the second criteria. There's only 2 criteria that determine whether you should buy a rental property or not. First, are you ready? Second, did you find a good or great deal? When you've been investing a few more years and you have a few rental properties, the criteria starts to get a little more strict and you start looking for better and better deals. You want to do better than you did before. So people get stuck on kind of home rent-itis and they want to get that great deal. They've heard about their friend that has a certain yield or better parking than the deals you're finding, or has more of the criteria that guy on Dion Talk talks about all the time. He's got like 8 that he lists out. And if you don't find 7, don't buy it. You're not going to find the home run deal your first 5 times, right? I don't know that any of my deals have been a home run. But have you found a deal that's good enough worth pursuing? So here's the thing. When somebody says, this market condition means you should buy now. Like the other day, I said, if you wait until the spring, there's going to be more competition. That kind of sounds like I'm telling you to buy now, right? Are you ready? Right? Don't buy now unless you're ready. But if you are ready, right now is a time you can buy before you hit the competition that comes out with spring. That doesn't mean buy now, because you have to find the deal. Just because there's more competition in the spring doesn't mean it's a worse time to buy. The best time to buy is when you're ready and you found the right deal. That's the two things that will tell you if it's time to buy. It doesn't matter where interest rates are. I'd pay 50% interest on a loan if it would get me a better yield than a 0% interest loan, because that doesn't matter to me. What is the yield? Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. How much did I invest into this property? Down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs, the money that it took to get the deal into my possession, even though the bank might own the note, I own the property, divided by, so that cost to acquire, dividing into your profit, annual profit, and not stuff like principal pay down or appreciation, just the actual cash flow that comes in. How much are you going to profit? Annual profit divided by cost to acquire will get you your yield. So that's where you calculate in rates, prices, rents, but that doesn't mean you're going to find a great deal. Interest rates can drop to 2 tomorrow. So people say, oh, I'm going to buy when interest rates drop. What do you think that's going to do to prices? Right? They're going to skyrocket. Interest rates went down to 2 and 3% in 2020, 2021. What happened to prices? 30% appreciation in some markets, 24% appreciation in the markets I'm in. That doesn't suck when you own the properties. It kind of sucks when you're trying to get them. So waiting is bad. Buying too fast is bad, because none of that's taking into consideration the two things. Are you ready? If you're not ready, you should wait. If you are ready, you shouldn't jump on a deal until you find a great one. So as quick as I could, 12 minutes or so, I made this as a standalone video. So I'm going to be hitting stop on record. Don't leave, because I'm about to give an outro. I hope this video at least made you think. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. So I do an intro like that, 10, 15 minutes is the goal. Sometimes I ramble to 26, and I apologize, but it's a point I really want to make sometimes. At the beginning of these live streams every Tuesday, so that I can give people a chance to get questions into the comment section, because my goal on Tuesdays is to answer as many questions as you guys have. And I can talk financial freedom, financial independence. There's a difference. I could talk real estate, investing. I could talk running a company. I could talk transportation. I could talk law enforcement. I could talk military. I can't talk parenting, relationships, or all the other things I think I've really messed up at. But I'm hoping that the start of this video kind of makes it easier for people to know when to buy. We get in a rush. We've talked several times that the first 5 years kind of suck, go really slow. It was 2 years of saving while I lived in an apartment and rented out my house to buy the first duplex. 2 years of saving to buy the first investment, not house hacked duplex. Then about a year and a half to the next one. So it started to get faster then. But those first 4 years, I did two things, right? I wasn't ready. I didn't have the down payment. I didn't have the financial stability. I didn't have rental income on my tax return, so that my debt to income ratio didn't matter. I had things not in place. So I probably could have seen better deals in 2010, 2011 at the bottom of the last housing crash than I found when I was ready. Once I was ready, I looked at a whole bunch of properties, made some really bad offers on bad advice of somebody who I thought was a mentor at the time, but then ended up learning my buy box, learning my market, learning the strategy that worked here, which wasn't single family, doesn't cash flow in my areas, but small multifamily does, and house hacking. But I had to get ready, and then I had to find a great deal. Those were the two things. Nothing in the market has ever mattered to me. I've never cared if prices are going up or down. I've never cared if rates are going up or down. It is, what are prices and rates currently, and what are rents currently, and then compare that to the deals that I'm finding, because it also has to include a seller willing to part with the property, that a number that makes sense to what's going on with prices and rents in your area and rates at the time. Instead of timing the market, I'm going to wait until this happens. If you're having that thought, how many millions of people do you think are having that thought too? So, howdy everybody. I appreciate you coming and hanging out on a Tuesday. If anybody is super bored, I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., there's going to be a random midday live stream on one rental at a time with the three amigos. So I think this is the first time we mentioned it on any of the videos, but if anybody's around tomorrow, 9 a.m., the three of us will be doing a format like this where we answer questions. So sometimes you guys ask questions and it's like on a rehab, not something I've done, on more creative financing or buying multifamily, not something I've done. So if those questions come up tonight, I'm going to say, hey, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, that's the time to ask the two guys that have done those kind of things. Zuber made a really good analogy that I'm gonna start running with. We've used it in a couple of videos now. And it's a sports ball analogy, which is not my thing. You want to make a chess analogy, I'll jump all over it. But there's a stadium, and there's outside the stadium is a parking lot where most people are, and most people in the parking lot are doing like a tailgate party, drinking, throwing the football. In the parking lot, people think it is normal to work more than 40 hours a week for more than 40 years to retire on less than 40% of what you make. That's what the average American person believes. We're taught that. We're taught, we go to school, it's Monday through Friday, a bell starts it, a bell ends it, you get a break, you work, you go to school for the weekend, so you become an adult, you work for the weekend, you learn that that's just normal. My job is to show people that there's another path. That if you buy cash flowing assets and you get out of the parking lot into the stadium, the job doesn't have to be a thing. You can work, but you don't have to. So that's my point. My goal is to say, if you're lazy, if you're not that smart, there's a reason I joined the Marine Corps, and not the Air Force, right? You can still do this. If you're a single parent, if you're in a lot of bad debt that you didn't know about until the divorce, like all of these things, if you have all these issues, you can still do this. Once you're in the stadium and you're in the stands, that's where Zuber comes in with one rental at a time and talks about, here's the systems, here's all of these experts, all of these paths that you can choose to get onto the field and have your assets, to have assets pay for your life instead of working for your life. Once you're on the field, once you figure out from the one rental at a time experts which path works for you, which asset class works for you, what works in your market, you get onto the field. And that's where the lumberjack landlord Matt comes in with self-managing over 100 units. Like even Zuber was like, I'm gonna put a system in place and have people do that. Matt's like, no, I'm a control freak and I want to grow a business. So he's doing his own property management stuff. He is doing everything on the field, like the actual gridiron. That's the reason the three of us work so well together. So Dividend Dave, howdy. Afro Capitalist, howdy. Haven't seen you in a bit. Laura, howdy. To and Fro Global, howdy. Reminds me that the earth is flat. I have proof, there's a map over there and it's flat. And I have supporters all around the globe that say the earth is flat. Chesla, howdy. Good luck on your tenant issue. John, howdy. Would you touch I think your main HELOC in 2023 if you were looking to grow? So I was looking to grow for the last 10 years and never touched a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance and never sold to 1031. There's really two paths to growing, and your goals kind of determine which one makes more sense to you. Recycling capital, so taking out equity to put it to work. And when you take out equity, you're either losing an asset or putting debt on an existing asset. So that's kind of the definition to me of what using equity is. To add more assets, to grow, to scale faster, which down the road probably equals even more cash flow, right? So, I mean, it's a smart strategy, but what's your timeline? What's your time horizon? I wanted financial freedom in 10 years or less, right? And for me, it started slow. Right? Save 2 years for the next property, save 2 years for the next property, save a year and a half for the next property, pay a house off in a year and a half, save a year for the next property. Like there was a timeline. I'm going to make that video coming up soon too, if I remember, because I have some memory issues. But I want to do it at the 10 years. Let me know if you guys would want this, or if you're so familiar with my content, it wouldn't matter. What did the cash flow look like every single year from starting in just a 10-year time period to financial freedom? If people want that, I would make it, because I don't want to make a video that I want to make. I want to make a video that would help you guys. Because if I was going to make a video I want to make, it would be about chess, Dungeons and Dragons, Marine Corps, combat. Like it would be all these things that have nothing to do with what people could learn from. Like I said, can't give you parenting advice. My kids turned out well. I don't think it was any fault of mine. So would I touch a home equity line of credit if I was looking to grow? since I never have, I would probably say no. I'm not looking to grow now. So don't compare year 10 to year 1. You should still, if you're not at financial freedom or 4 times your freedom number, you should probably still be looking to grow, right? I would be saving. This is how I did it. I saved a down payment. I've house hacked twice. So there were times where I found the deal and I wasn't ready with a down payment for an investment property, but I was ready for the down payment, closing costs, reserves, and immediate repairs for an investment for a house hack, right? So there's 2 times where I was ready for that, but not ready for an investment. The other times I saved for the investment. So if you don't have the money and you want to save the down payment and it's smaller, house hack. If you could save more, then investment property. Or like Millennial Mike's strategy, you don't need to save as much if you invest in a lower cost of living area where he's getting a better yield than I am. He's investing at a distance. That's another reason why one of the REI Avengers, when we get together, we work out so well, because the other 3 of us don't really invest at a distance. So that adds a whole new element to the mix that all of us can benefit from. And then I see that he jumped into the chat. Working, but just jumping in to remind people to like the video because Dion is the man, says the man out there working. Thank you for your energy and effort and work. And I like how you work to pay taxes to pay your salary. It's a beautiful synergy going on there, Mike. And then I see James J jumped in with a super chat, which I appreciate. No newbie question today, just wanted to send support. Well, thank you, James. Yeah, I appreciate that. And thanks for saying no question, because I will miss them sometimes because super chats only let you put in so many words. So people put the questions in and then I'll miss it. They don't always come together. But thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Lauren, howdy. Hopefully you're having a very boring, either boring night at work or not boring night away from work. Type of account to stash cash while saving for down payment. That is a good question because I'm actually looking at shifting how I do that. For the last 10 years, interest rates were kind of not great. Most times you could, I think in 2017, 18, you can get 2 or 3% at a bank. You can get some online banks like Ally were coming out that might pay more. In growth mode, Lauren, I kind of wanted not to get a good return on my money sitting in the bank. But it sounds dumb, but if you have, let's say you have $100,000 sitting in the bank for the next deal and you can get 3%, right? That's so $3,000 at the end of the year that you're going to be taxed on. So 30% tax, you're going to be making a little over $2,000 basically if you're just under the 30% tax bracket. So $2,000 sounds great, right? I wanted a very little return so that it was irritating me because I'm lazy. But that irritation was like, you have money sitting in the bank. And according to Jaspreet of Minority Mindset, you are absolutely losing money to inflation every year. That's why I learned that like probably 10 years ago. When I really started to understand finances, I spent 40 years without having a clue how money worked in my life. So I found YouTube University. But that itch in my brain going, you're losing money, it means you need to find a rental. You need to take the money out of the bank. You're not going to spend it. You're just going to move it. You're going to take it out of the bank and you're going to put it in a rental. If you can't find a deal right now and you're currently saving for your next deal and you have you're not ready, right? The 2 things that you need to buy a property is you need to be ready and you need to find the deal. So if you're not ready and you're saving, and that means down payment, closing costs, reserves, immediate repairs, like all the money that you need to save, online FDIC insured banks like Ally or any of the others that are out there that can get you like a 3% right now. Some might even be more than that. Find out what their limits are, what their transaction requirements are, make sure it's going to meet your lifestyle. I haven't used one of those, but I'm kind of thinking about it now. Although I still kind of like the motivation of I have money sitting in a bank earning almost nothing. And if I could take it out and put it into a rental, it's going to actually get me cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down, tax benefits, like all the things it's not going to do in any checking or saving account. There are some local credit unions that offer really good interest rates on return, but they have like a $15,000 limit and you have to do so many transactions with your account. Too many hoops for me to jump through because they're lazy. So that's what I would do. Make sure I'm not missing any of those because I'm not really good at those. Okay. Peter, howdy. Lauren, Michelle, howdy. Art, howdy. Lauren, Somebody in our area, I must have very deep pockets, because no matter where the fourplexes are located, they're snapped up off the market within a day, within days, even in the bad areas of town. So they do go quick. Watch for days on market to pile up. There's usually probably going to be an issue that you need to solve with the property. That's why it's there. And real estate is very local. So a lot of times you're going to hear people talk about, well, it seems like rents are softening in my area because they were going up and people projected where they would go and they didn't rent. So they brought it down, which doesn't mean they lowered it from where it was last time, but it's not as high as what they were expecting. So that means rents are softening. Every video that you see from anybody saying rents are going down, here's my BS meter. Before rents go down, property owners make concessions. Half a month free, 1 month free, whatever. They don't want to lower rents because you want the rents to stay as high as possible so that next year you can do an increase from that point, not from a reduced rate. So the YouTube crash brothers who don't own properties are often lenders or somebody in the industry that isn't an investor. So like the one exception that I know of is Matt, the mortgage guy. He knows what he's talking about. So I watch his stuff, but there are other ones that I don't watch because all they are is every week it's a crash video because you get views. So they're making money off of views more than they're making money off of their investing. We'll talk about our area or the market. And I try to be as neutral as possible when it comes to our rents going up or down, our prices going up or down. So I tend to not talk about in our area, Lauren, because we're in the same area. Nothing has changed. Prices aren't dropping. Rents aren't dropping. Rents aren't flattening. They're not even it's just like it was last year still, as far as competition goes. But there'll be somebody watching going, well, I live in Duluth, Montana. It's probably not even where that's at. Sounds like a real place though. No. I went to school in America. They don't teach us stuff like geography. And they'll say, well, in my market, this is what's happening. Well, of course, everything is very local. If you live in an industry, in an area where some economic drivers move away, yes, you're going to be significantly impacted. Or if you live near a larger city where remote working is having a bigger impact. Remote working is really not changing the way people lived in Tumwater, Washington, but Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, parts of Los Angeles, that's having a huge impact. So if you're in this area, Lauren, here's the trick. Learn the markets, learn the areas that you want to avoid. Get this down to speed being your friend. Get an offer in quick before the seller realizes they're going to be inundated with over asking offers, waiving contingencies, just like they were a year ago. In certain areas, speed is still your friend. In some areas, and you can still do the same, the other side of it. Watch days on market. And when you know they're gone in a couple of days, you said it in your question here. When you see one that's been on the market here for 15 days, now you have some negotiation power because they're watching too. Their agents working with other deals that are off the market just as fast. So happy hunting. REI Stoners, howdy. Happy New Year, everybody. Is there another one of these before the New Year? I have no idea. I don't think so. What is today? No, the next Tuesday is next year. So this is the last one of the year, which is, oh, I think I put up the same number in the thumbnail as last week. So I don't think I changed the number. So whatever was in the thumbnail, we're in the one after that. Lumberjack Landlord. Howdy, Matt. Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. Dion is Tuesday nights. I'm Sunday at 11:30, and I must have missed a Michelle thing. Michelle. Howdy. Thought it was Matt that was going to do the live today. Happy to see you, as much as I still love Matt too. Thank you. Yep. Matt's doing a live stream this Friday, and we have the Three Amigos tomorrow. Matt's are Sunday mornings, 8:30 Pacific. And yes, Lauren, people in our area, we're competing with a lot of cash buyers around here too. We've had a mass, not exodus, but a massive migration of people who can work remotely in Seattle, who have to go to the office 1 or 2 days a week now, who are moving into Pierce County. Yeah. Mark, financial firefighter, howdy, from Hawaii. Aloha. Dividend Dave, Dion works 2 hours a month. This would make no sense now. Yeah, 2 hours a month is about, and that's if there are some months that take longer, because there are several months where it's maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, basically just making sure the rents were paid. and reading 1 or 2 messages from a handyman that fixed a problem that was less than $500. Anna K, howdy, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Michelle to Lumberjack, must have dreamt it. Fall asleep listening to you guys. I do the same thing. I put on YouTube channels that I'm still learning from. So I should put a link in the comments. In case you have a significant other that you sleep next to, you don't want a podcast going that they don't want to listen to, right? And you don't want an earbud in your ear all night. So I have these open ear design earbuds that go on the outside of the ear. I'll put a link in a comment after the video. All-Nighter Hider, howdy. Thank you for showing up on a Tuesday. I appreciate it. And now we can start. Peter Bedrosian, howdy. Would you rather use save money to buy a home, house hack, or a truck to work and make money for the house hack? That is a brilliant question. Okay, so a truck, semi, are you talking semi? There's a couple things here. If you're going to buy a semi to make money and you're starting a business, you're probably not going to make money for 3 to 5 years. You're probably actually going to lose money the first year because insurance sucks before you're an established company. It's going to be a multiplier of what you're going to pay in 2 years of having CDL experience with your CDL company existing for 2 years. So buying a truck to make money, to buy a house, going to be kind of hard. If it's to buy a truck because you're a plumber or painter or electrician and it's going to make your business grow and it's going to make you more effective, that's a little bit of a different story because that's an existing business that you're going to grow with the asset. So there's 3 paths to financial freedom. There's hundreds, but there's 3 main ones. The first is investing in stocks. Most people talk about the 4% rule, which was studied in the Trinity study and kind of vetted out as with a like 96% effective rate, right? Where you save and invest in stocks. It can be dividend portfolio, it can be stocks, whatever. They're starting and growing a business, and then there's real estate. Are you an entrepreneur? Because I'm not. Right, I'm an investor. I am not an entrepreneur. I would be terrible. I have been terrible at running 2 of my own businesses. One I shut down because the spouse emptied out the taxes and wages account, which is always fun every time I remember to bring that up. And the other one, I actually just ran it all wrong. Completely my fault. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. So I went for the house hack. You're going to have to live somewhere. How much will the house hack impact your saving rate versus what you can actually produce with the truck? Pro and con listed. Game theory. That's how I would look at that. Good question. Make sure I'm not missing any other super chats. No, okay. Shred, howdy. Do you have a great realtor in the Portland, Oregon area you trust? I do not. And actually, when it comes to great real estate agents, and if they ever watch my content, howdy, all 3 of you, I have some that I'll recommend, right? That I trust, that are good, but I would always recommend working with at least 3, no matter what. Unless you're a home buyer and you're going to take up a bunch of their time, then respect their time, sign that exclusivity agreement, waste only their time until they get the deal. But if you're an investor where they just set up an auto search and then only make offers when you're ready, and you're not wasting a bunch of their time, I wouldn't sign that, and I work with at least 3. To do that, I would look for local REI meetups and try to get, face-to-face referrals from people that are there. And always be careful if somebody at a table is recommending somebody else at a table, because they're going to want to save face and say good things with the person there. But get the honest review of somebody who's not present during the conversation. BiggerPockets has a good search function, and then there are forums you can look in your area. Yeah, that'd be my suggestion. I've worked with a brand new agent on I think it was his 2nd or 3rd deal. And I'm going to do something very un-YouTube friendly. And I just realized my system is not charging. So I'm going to grab a charger. Don't go anywhere. It's almost like I'm still in the room. It's also how I proved that it's not a green screen. Okay, so now the computer shouldn't die in the middle of a live stream. That would be awesome. Although power went out the other day on half of my unit, which was weird, during a live stream. That's right. So find an agent. I don't know anybody in that area. And when I recommend him in my area, I even let them know, hey, I'm recommending a couple here for you to figure out who do you actually get along with. Yeah, I wish I did. Brock, howdy. All-nighter hider. It frustrates me every time I hear someone brag about working overtime. That's not something to be proud of unless it's calculated very well. Overtime as a general opportunity is an oxymoron. So I don't know if I ever bragged about it, but I worked a lot of overtime. I worked a lot of online side hustle as a nerd, playing World of Warcraft and selling things online as a side hustle. But every job I've had, I generally worked a ton of overtime, and it was just like I thought I would work until I died. And I think it's a culture thing. And Zuber talks about this really well, where he was like 12 or 11, and his dad used to talk about, working until he died. And Mike would go, "Oh, that's great!" Like he was super proud of his dad. Working until you die, it's great. Having to work until you die is bad for anybody, even if they love the job. Dylan, howdy. I'm using an HYSA. I don't need it. Liquid on demand, though. It's strictly for real estate. So high yield savings account. There you go. My brain, because Lauren works in the medical field. I was thinking, you have one of those things where you can set aside money for that. Bedros. You may want to put it in a very safe stock. At least you'll generate some income to combat inflation. Kind of. Right now, there are some online banks that are paying above 3 or 4%. So if you can get 4% on something like a savings account, to me, that would be less risky than a stock, when even Warren Buffett's Berkshire is down like 5% right now. A lot of stocks are down like 50%, but even somebody that skilled is down. I don't know that I'd want money, because down is not a good return. Not a stock guy. Don't give stock advice. I don't even tell people whether they should or shouldn't, because like, when should you buy a rental? Should you buy real estate or stocks? Which one excites you? Which one are you more likely to stick with when something goes wrong? That's the one you should invest in. And so no one can answer that question but you. High yield savings account. Chris Ledbetter, howdy. I would like to see the 10-year video and play you in chess. I'm a terrible chess player. I love chess. I love the theory. I love the concepts. I love how you can apply it to life. But after you get, okay, there's a beginning, like your setup stage, there's a mid game, and then there's end game. And I get some simple concepts like mid game. Knights are stronger in a closed off game. Bishops are stronger in an open game. Knights on the rim are weak. Like I get the point system. I get all that kind of stuff, right? But I have had head trauma in Desert Storm, and my memory sucks. So when it comes to things like somebody uses the Sicilian defense, and my brain starts playing out the alternate versions of it. I don't remember them. I can't remember so I get the start, mid, great. And I fall apart after that. I have this friend who doesn't watch my content. So if you ever did, Sid, hi, loves chess, great chess, stomps me into the dirt every time we play, except he's really religious and super defensive about it. So some subtle comments can spin him off his game and then give me a 50-50 shot. So I'd love to play chess. I'll never gamble on it. Ninja Vanish, howdy. Hi, old so thank you for that. Bedros, all-nighter hider, thank you for that. Follow-up question. Do they even exist without a long-term commitment? Yeah, the online ally was not high yield. I mean, 3-4%, but so you're not doing like a CD or something like that. It's just, that's what they're doing. But you have a delay, and when you go to get your money, it might take you a couple of days to transfer it out. That might be improving. My information on that is coming from like 2 years ago when I really looked into it. I haven't looked into it this year to know for sure. Cody, howdy. All-nighter hider. I've been recommended Wealthfront as a high yield savings account. I looked into their terms of service, and you can pull when you want, but I'm not sure who they're lending to know if it's risky or not. And then my chat moved, which I love because that means there's more questions, because that's my goal. Like YouTube, the brain says you should do a live stream for like an hour. I would like to do 2-3 hours every time, but there has to be enough questions, because my content, the cover on when to buy a rental, was 12 minutes. These questions that spur these answers, the reason this is important to me, and I know I've said this before, but just in case there's somebody here for the first time or somebody who hadn't heard this before, the reason the live streams are great to me is I'm super lazy and I have some memory issues. And if I study for a video, like I have a video coming out, should you allow pets, right? Simple concept, right? But to put it together in a format where I know as a part of a curriculum for learning, this is going to be retainable. Here's the 3 things you're going to learn. I could put it in the structure. It's going to take 3 days to make sure it's done right, right? Evergreen content where you can watch it 2 years from now or next, this week or next week when it comes out. But I don't keep that in my mind. I made a decision. Here's the criteria that I use to decide I allow pets or I don't allow pets, right? Like that's why I made the video. We're making the video. I'll never think about that again. I would never think about that again unless I was making a video, right? But during a live stream, and I'm getting asked these questions, the information that you're getting is, you have 2 things. 1, I have the answer, which means it's top of mind awareness. The thing that you asked was enough for me to know, to keep aware of, so that when I see a property, when I hear an opportunity, I can make a quick decision. If you ask a question, and I have had several times where I've gone, like, it's at a distance, I have no clue. Here's Millennium Mike. He'll answer all your questions. He's actually killing it. This is who I would go to. Or it's, you want to do a rehab? That's awesome. Congratulations. You're way more motivated than me. I'm too lazy. Here's Lumberjack Landlord and how you would do that. Like source the materials, chronologize the order of operations of which part of the rehab is going to be done. None of my info is going to cover that. So when you ask a question on these live streams and the questions keep coming up, this is when people learn what an investor knows, not what an investor has to look up, right? Some things we have to look up because we made a decision. We've just always gone with that. But there are some things that help me make a decision on buying the next property right now. And that's where these questions really help me, because I know I'm sharing the stuff that I know. Like I don't have to research it. And every now and then I'll get a question and it'll be some really detailed tax question, which might be specific to your area, definitely specific to your relationship, the type of property, all these other aspects. And my question is just like you would see on social media. You should check with a tax pro. Here's the basic answer without all of the details. I don't have the right answer for that, right? So that means I don't learn all of the tax things. I know that there are benefits, right? That was enough for me to say real estate is the one I'm choosing. And then I hire a pro. Those kind of detailed tax the reason most people say we should tax the professionals is because that's what we do. I know how to calculate yield, so I don't hire Matt, who's got a freaking calculator in his head whenever it comes to numbers, right? He can just spit them out. I know how to calculate the yield enough to where I don't hire somebody like a math expert to do that, but I don't know taxes, don't want to, so I will hire that pro. That's why that advice is always like that. Legal, tax, almost always the same way. Not stuff I want to commit to memory. Laura, I placed my reserve money in an online saving account at 3.5%. It is better than the 0.001 regular banking account. I know that's what I'm looking at doing myself. I've had it in 0.02% at one bank for forever because I wanted that motivation to put it to work. But 3.5%, putting it online, safe, online, FDIC insured bank, starting to look more attractive. Though I would rather find the property and put the money in the property. The 2 things have to happen. I have to be ready. I'm ready for certain things, right? Now I'm almost ready for a BRRRR without using hard money or short-term money, actually using my own money. And then I have to find the deal. So I'm looking for the purchase or the BRRRR or the whatever that will line it. But in that amount of time, it could be tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. So that's where the online savings account is starting to look more attractive. Lauren, thank you. I appreciate the questions. Cody. I personally have used non-qualified mutual funds for down payment, usually investing in safe funds. So a great blending of your stock knowledge versus your real estate knowledge, which is something I don't have. I say it often, I wouldn't own a stock if somebody gave it to me. That doesn't mean you can't give me a stock. If you gave it to me, I would sell it and put the money into real estate. Bedros says 27. Oliver. Glad to make the last live of the year. I'm glad you're here too. I actually just realized, well, it's my last Tuesday live. I just realized I have actually at least 2 more lives coming up. I might do the pets one live once I have the information in order. Maybe, we'll see. But I have tomorrow, we have a surprise 3 amigos. So surprise, act surprised. And then Friday, Lumberjack Landlord is doing a one on his channel where we had a topic and my memory kicked in. So Be as surprised as I am on Friday for that one. Dividend Dave. Hider's here. Now we can start. Exactly. Dave is here. Tap the keg. I like it. Daily data. Howdy. What properties would you buy in Lancaster, PA? So I don't know anything about Lancaster, PA, but it's a perfect question because I think it's the topic that we're going to talk about on our live stream on Friday on Lumberjack's channel, because that spurred my non-existent memory. We get a question often on the Three Amigos, the One Rental at a Time, the REI Avengers, all of us, even Beth gets this question often. Something like, hey, look at this deal. What do you think? Or what would you buy in this area, right? Here's the answer. And so this is a preview of what you're going to get more articulately, because Matt speaks better than I do, on Friday, where when we get that answer, even if it's an email form, we're not going to, I can't tell you what you would buy in Lancaster. I know I would run through a certain set of criteria if I was going to invest there, right? So first, I'm going to pick the area. And let's say it's Lancaster, PA, which I grew up in a little town called Rosamond, California, next to Lancaster, California. So, right. So it's confusing me because that's PA. It's not CA, right? Do you live there? Or did you used to live there so you know the neighborhoods? If you don't, do you know somebody who lives there who works in the industry, like a property manager, contractor, real estate agent, somebody like that that's in the industry that you trust? Like, you think they're probably going to come to your funeral. So that tells me, can I buy there? Would I buy there, right? Are there enough economic drivers around that area for you to support having rentals there? So for me, I have a long list of economic drivers. It can be a base, a port, a college, a hospital, Boeing or Amazon terminal, or a large company, or a population of 100,000 or more, right? So those are all criteria. I want at least 3 or more. So 2 or 3 of them at a minimum, but 3 or more would be better. I also invest in a little town called McKenna, Washington, that has about 600 and something people in it, but it's close enough to a base, large company. It's commuting distance from Tacoma, commuting distance from Olympia. So it's got the large population at a distance. So it doesn't have my large population criteria, but it doesn't also have Boeing, and it doesn't have Amazon. It doesn't have all these. It doesn't have to have all of them. I want 3 or more, right? So all of those criteria. So do you know the area? You used to know the area, have somebody that you trust there. Does it have the economic drivers? Then what strategy is going to work there? In some areas, if you're in a little town by a base and there's nothing else there and you just can't say you have to invest there, storage is probably your best bet, especially if the units deploy, because then you might lose your tenants, but you're not going to lose storage. You're actually going to have increased demand. So, I mean, there's a strategy that's working somewhere, everywhere. Somebody's investing successfully. What strategy is working there? I wanted to do single family houses, but they don't cash flow in my area. So I switched to small multifamily. And in some areas like Gary, Indiana, it seems like single family perform better than small multifamily. So it depends on what's going to have the better yield. I also invest for fixed rate debt. So Convoy Home Loans right now goes up to 8 units on fixed rate, 30-year or 40-year fixed rate debt. So I'm looking at 8 units or less because I don't want anything that has an adjustable rate mortgage, loan revaluation period, balloon payment, any of that kind of stuff. I want to fire and forget the mortgage and never think about it again unless interest rates drop enough to where I should refinance to improve cash flow. Like, that's the only amount of thought I want on those mortgages. I don't care about them ever being paid off. But I don't want an adjustable rate mortgage. I don't want to have that fear that in 5 years, my entire thing might implode if something changed in the market, because I don't want to time the market. So now you've got what strategy works there. Now you're looking at, so it's single family, house with an ADU, small multifamily. Maybe you like residential and you want to scale faster than me. So that's what I would look at in that market. And then you need to learn what is average. It takes 60 to 90 days to learn of the asset class that you chose that would cash flow. A lot of them are probably going to lose money, but of the ones that make money, what is the average one that makes money? If it makes 5%, I would look for 7% yield. If it makes, in my area, it was like 7 to 8%, I looked for 10% yield. So I want to do better than average, but I don't want to, like, if I can find 10% yields, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to buy until I find a 30% yield, right? Because I know they exist. Well, right. 1 in 50 years might. I want to buy 1 every couple of years or 1 every year, right? So I'm going to go for above average, but I don't need to kill it. It doesn't need to be a home run. It just needs to get me on base. After you've picked the market, which you did, you've picked the asset class, you know that it has the economic drivers. Now I look at the physicalities of the property. So here's what I would buy. What aspects of that property are going to help me limit tenant turnover? In some areas, it's if you're near a college or you're near a base, maybe it's amenities. Do you have a workout room? Do you have a pool in some areas? I mean, what is drawing people to that area? In my area, it's not amenities, it's washer dryer inside each unit. Tenants don't like to use shared laundry or laundromats. I like 2 bedrooms and a garage or more, so that more space equals more stuff equals less likely to move. I don't like over-under units. I like side-by-side units, even though I invest in small multifamily, but I don't like over-under because noise complaints and plumbing issues can cause something to impact 2 tenants instead of just one. So the physicalities of the property that's going to help me limit tenant turnover that's local to your area. For instance, I live in Washington, where it rains every now and then. You get more money on a rental with a carport than you do on a rental with a garage. Didn't know that my first few years investing here, but I've realized that in the last couple of years, running the numbers on. I've got 3 friends that have 30, 10, about 80 units, and on our numbers, everybody with a carport is getting the most rent. If everything else was the same, that's probably something different in your area. Find out what that is. So that's what I would buy in Lancaster, PA. So daily data. That was a great question. And I hope I give you that checklist, because that's what we do. When somebody sends us a thing and says, will you look at this deal and tell me what you think? It's going to be, look, I can't tell you. I don't know what your goals are, what your resources are, what your timeline is, what your amount of work you want to take on is. I mean, do you want to do a rehab or do you want to do it the lazy way? But I can tell you, if I was in that area, here's the checklist of things I would go through to get to determining if this is a good deal or not. So here's the information on how I would do it. Now you take that information and you apply it to that deal. So that's how you'll look at Lancaster, PA. Take everything that I just said, apply it to the market that you're investing. Dividend Dave, how would you know your secret? Bedros, dang, that was an excellent answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Financial firefighter. I love open ear, shocks, open ear. But I think I found something even better for listening in bed. I also slightly more comfortable. Check out Oladance stereos. So check those out. I have open ear because I'm a gamer, and I'll do the shocks. They're good. They're expensive. I found on Amazon these ones for like $30 that are just one. You can wear one side or the other, so not both if you don't want to. And it's comfortable to lay on, even if you're in bed. So I'll put that link. I forget what they're called, but they're like $30 compared to shocks, which were 150 or 200, depending on which ones you get. The quality is not there on the other ones for making phone calls. Shocks are good for phone calls or for gaming stuff, but for just taking in content while you're sleeping, I'm also more comfortable breaking a $30 set if I had to. All-nighter hider. There's also buying an existing business in distress, much like how we view properties. Small business, SBA makes loans for that, right? So the trucking company that I was at, that's exactly what the owners did. They came in, and it wasn't in distress, but the owner wanted to retire. And they purchased it, having never driven a truck, knowing nothing about transportation. So it was like the perfect timing for me to go, I have some ideas that would grow this place. And then ended up getting demoted to the president of the company because of those ideas. But that was their idea. They bought a business in distress and then they grew it. Now they live off of the cash flow of several businesses. I'm trying to get them into real estate. I think they've got 2 duplexes now, and 1 single family, and a primary, but they're not the income that they have. They could have 20 right now, but it's just not on their radar. They can make so much more investing in their business than in real estate. Kind of like Graham Stephan. Totally makes sense that he sells off some of his real estate because he can make another video and make another $30,000 off of a video in the next couple of weeks, right? I'd focus on that too. And my chat moved, which again, I appreciate. Thank God it's a pants day. Yes, exactly. And that's only because it's cold. Out there dealing with pipes. Howdy, Angel. I didn't have any of those this year. I'm surprised. I had one last year where was it the first year? It was the second year I owned the property. And somebody designed a pipe that comes up out of the ground into the crawl space, fully exposed. Didn't know it existed until it froze. So hopefully that went well for you. That sucks. Sean, howdy. Looking at a fourplex in Michigan, Minnesota. Like I said, I went to school in America. We don't learn stuff. Zoned commercial asset on Zillow, but the broker owner is saying it is grandfathered in as a residential asset. Therefore, you can get an FHA 3.5% down loan on it. Check with a lender to find out if it would qualify. Check with the county to find out if it's grandfathered in or if it's called non-conforming and they're not doing anything about it. Because they might go, yeah, you're grandfathered in, but yeah, next week we got a new person in the office and they're saying, nope, can't do that, can't do residential, something could change. So check how it's actually registered with the county. And remember that whenever you're getting information from the seller or the broker, there's the bottom of the page, it's going to say pro forma, which means made up BS, and everything on this list has to be verified by you. So numbers, statements, everything, you're going to have no recourse really if you close on it and then the county tells you, oh, that's not true. So I would verify with the county and check with lenders to see if they can do a loan product for that property. That's how I would handle that. It's a good question. Let me know how it goes. Electric Journeys. Howdy. Why did you switch from the Krin map to the Ferran map? First, thank you for being a nerd. Welcome to the dark side. We have cookies. The Krin map means more to me. I'm more of a Dragonlance fan than a Ferran fan, even though there's like 400 books on one and 200 and something books on the other. But I like the color scheme of this one better. The Krin map looks like a war map, and it's not. Those are, the red is just mountain, right? It's how they chose to do on their topography. Here's what a mountain will look like. This is softer. I like the color scheme. I actually have a Forgotten Realms that's tan, and I don't like the way it looks either. And then we have the America map, the world map over there. That's my map that proves that the Earth is flat. Because it's flat, it's on the wall. You can see it. It's like Pac-Man though. Keep going that way, come out over there. That's why I switched. I like this one better. And the two purposes of the maps. One, I started this channel while I still had a W-2 job. I mean, admittedly, I was the president of the company, so I could get away with it anyway. But I would sometimes do this at work or at home, and you couldn't tell. And sometimes I'd want to start a video, and then I'd get home and I'd want to change something, but I'd have a different map, and I wanted to be contiguous, which I think is a word. And so I could have the same map hanging in both places. But it also adds something to the acoustics to where it takes away this real tinny sound that I was getting even with a pretty good mic. So it serves a couple purposes, but owning real estate on Earth, this map's more real to me than Earth is. Basilio, howdy. Love your videos. You have a fan right here. Awesome. You have a fan too. I like everybody who's putting in the work to make themselves better. And if it's investing, great. It could be learning something else too, but it's one of the things where this is too much of an overshare. I will blame the Pirate Cup. I got into Marine Corps, law enforcement, truck driving because I'm an introvert. I am not a people person. Have you met people? And so YouTube works great because we're all hanging out, right? But I get to be by myself, hanging out with you. It's so weird. But I started working at a truck driving school, and that is absolutely 100% counterintuitive to my entire existence. I am not a people person, but we trained around 2,000 people a year. I was on base doing presentations. I was in prisons doing presentations. I was constantly in front of people until I figured out I can make a video and just send them a link. But everyone I was interacting with at the CDL school, commercial driver school, was bettering themselves. That's the benefit to me to this channel. I'm not watching people who are, watching cat videos. We've all watched a cat video. I'm making videos, watching videos, sharing content with other creators for people who are trying to reach financial freedom. Because imagine how much better the world is if people have jobs they want, not jobs they have to have for the money. And to me, that's why this kind of hanging out and going to like the Zuber meetup and going to Vegas for the thing because he's got like 9,000 people left to go. So he's closing in on us getting that thing there in Vegas. To me, it's great. These are the kind of people who are doing something to better their life. So those are the kind of people I want to hang out with. All-Nighter Hider. I really appreciate your explanation of Simon's video with George today. Made me feel like I'm rated higher than I think, though I don't play chess either. Yeah, no, so I was listening to Gammon. It's kind of the first video. I've seen clips of him with other people, but I have never really sat back and listened to him. Super smart guy, super knowledgeable, great information, but at a level where it's kind of like, I think he needs an interviewer that doesn't understand the terminology. Like when we make a video here, if you hear us say something like yield, cash flow, high tie, if you're the lumberjack fan, what else? PITI or last week it was somebody was a little upset after the video because we talked about class A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. We really didn't break it down. We just said, yeah, I like to invest in C because people can step down from B to A or A to B to C. And in economic times, when there's strife, there'll be more demand for my unit. We just kind of casually tossed it out there. In the comments, if you're not certain about something we're saying, please call us out because it gives us a chance to break it down to the fundamentals to say, we used a term that we expected that everyone is just germane to this conversation, right? But if you're coming into this or you're coming from a different asset class, this is a lot of stuff to learn. And that's what I think Gammon needs. He needs an interviewer who sits back. So Uneducated Economist did really good. He had a couple questions where he sat back and he's looking, let me put that into like layman's terms on what that means, right? So that was why the interactions for me, I was like, I'm glad that was the first real in-depth video, because if I just watched a Gammon video without that question and interaction of like the Uneducated Economist there, I don't think I would have been able to follow most of it, right? And I'm not the most intelligent person, but I'm not the most unintelligent. So yeah, no, I'm glad you kind of put him on my radar. I wouldn't have even known unless you sent him. So, and then T, howdy. Thank you for being a member. I appreciate it. John, howdy. And this is what, no, I'm gonna say that. You mentioned before you quit your job that you had several $1,000s of loss that you couldn't take because of your W-2 income level. Do you get to carry that over? Will you use that now? So I did get to use that loss against rental income. So passive income is in a separate category. So I have never paid income tax on rental income, right? Not yet. I will someday, but not today. And when I do, I'll be happy. Like, wow, I've made so much money. I have to pay some to the government. That's gonna be great. I ain't gonna care. I don't care about avoiding taxes forever. I want to avoid taxes that I don't have to pay now. My W-2 is this year. I will probably still pay because I only worked 6 months with my W-2 this year. I will probably still end up writing a check for that amount because it's separate. Earned income is different than passive income. I carried a loss forward last year. I'm probably going to carry a loss forward this year. In addition to the one from last year, because I still have a full depreciation schedule to go. I still have write-offs going. I haven't spent very much on rehab this year, because I don't do rehabs, but on maintenance even this year. It's been a decent year for that. I'd be okay with writing taxes, right? Writing a check for taxes. So they were separate, John, and so it would never, in my case, count against W-2 because I'm not a real estate professional. I don't hit the criteria, and I don't have a spouse because I'm not stupid. And that came out wrong because I realized my people picker's broken. So I don't have a real estate professional in my life that I could use like Lumberjack Landlord did with his spouse, where he goes, she's the real estate professional. So now we're going to use cost segregation and real estate professional status to use it as a write-off. I don't have either one of those. So for me, as long as I kept working in W-2, I would always be paying taxes. Millennial Mike. Duluth is the malto meal cereal is made. And grew up on the generic stuff, and I know my cereal, so I know my Duluth, Minnesota. There you go. Dividend Dave. Marshmallow Mateys. Got to have what's your cereal of choice? Sometimes I overshare too much. When I was a kid, I went back in my day, but when I was a kid, we didn't own or rent a house. I've talked about this before, so if you're new to my channel, welcome to an overshare. We would move into houses, fix the doors and windows, and wait for the owners to show up and ask us who the heck we were. And if they did, we'd move. We never would stay. One time in this place called Haskell Canyon in LA County, the owner said, why don't you guys just pay $50 a month? Because I really like the idea of somebody being there because you're not trashing the place, you've actually fixed it up. And my dad says, nope, we don't pay rent, and we moved. So we didn't have money. We didn't have enough money to have food stamps, which is hard to understand under current conditions because now you just have EBT and you get money. But back in the billion-year-old dinosaur days, you gave the state of California $1 and they would give you $2 in these chits, right? So you bought food stamps and got more than the value that you get. We didn't have money for that, but we raised food. I ate like a king as a kid, right? We had every cut of steak you can imagine because we raised cattle, we raised goats, we raised pigs, we raised every kind of animal you can imagine. I worked in onion fields, so we always had, access to like all the food you want, right? Except for cereal. I would go to a friend's house and I would say, holy crap, you have a box of sugar you get to put in milk and eat? You're the richest person on the planet. That was my perception. So I still have cereal in my house because I'm finally rich enough to have cereal. 0 to hero. How many times a day do I call myself lazy? Not enough. Lazy is a powerful motivator. I wanted to be able to have the lifestyle I have now. You know what I did today? What did I do today? I did the Three Amigos, played some World of Warcraft, sent an email, doing this live stream. Like, this is the life I wanted. I don't have an 8 or a 10-hour work schedule. I don't have a schedule. I didn't want any of that, right? But I had to have that for the time it took to get financial freedom. So the motivation to want to be more lazy in the future allowed me to not be lazy for a time. But both of my brothers and my dad own residential tree services. So they did logging. So I was a climber, I was a faller, I was a bucker, I was a brush dragger, I was a skidder operator. Like, I've done all of those things. I joined the Marine Corps. One of the reasons was because it was easier than the family business. I'm so lazy, I joined the Marines. And that was the easiest thing ever. I was like, wow, these people stop yelling at you and they go to bed. My dad never did that. My brothers still call me lazy. And I can factually see it from their perspective. Like, so I've got a brother, David, who retired at 50 and has been retired now for like 8 years. He travels to California and sees my brother Dale, who still runs a tree service, and they'll go work together. They'll go do a day of tree work together. I go to California and I'll say, look, you want help? I will hire somebody to go help you for the day, but I'm not touching a chainsaw. I'm too lazy for that. And I did everything I could to get out of that kind of work, because that is, to me, the hardest work on the planet. So in comparison to the male figures I have in my life, I am the laziest person I know. Peter, howdy. How do you feel about properties that didn't have central air? No. Two of my properties have central air for heat. None of my properties have air conditioning. Do you have a checklist for rental before you consider buying it? Central air, number of beds. Yeah, so if I invested in an area that was more retirement or more maybe Airbnb friendly or more college student friendly, maybe single bedrooms would be fine, or studios would be fine. I've looked at places with ADUs with single bedroom or studio, but I prefer 2 bedrooms and a garage or more for more space, equaling more stuff, so less likely to move. My criteria is washer dryer hookups in it. I don't care about source of heat, because this is very specific to where you live. If you live in a place like around Boston, where you get locked out of your house certain times of year, you're going to die. Montana, whatever, the desert, certain places where temperatures can have so much variance that you need certain things that are required to provide. I live in Washington State. Yeah, it gets cold a little bit, but it's very rare to ever see it below 0. The world shuts down when it gets like that. So most of my places have baseboard heat. Some have fireplaces that I've closed off. So I don't have any kind of criteria when it comes to that, but it's what's normal to my area. There are places where people have no clue what a swamp cooler is. But if you live in the Mojave Desert, it's, 50% of the places have swamp coolers. It's just kind of normal. So your checklist of what you're going to want for your properties is going to be very local on what's expected to be normal there, because for instance, Section 8 pays the amount of rent based on bedrooms. They don't care about any other amenities. But if you're not renting to primarily Section 8, which is only 1/3 of my rentals, you have to think, what do people want? So I prefer a garage or a carport. I actually prefer the carport for more money, but I like the garage for space. So the garage means less turnover. The carport's going to mean more rent. It's normal for my area. And when you study your area, Peter, what is kind of an expected thing that tenants expect to have? Make sure you cover that. That's what I would look for. And not having it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. It means that to help limit tenants turnover, you're probably going to get less rent. So it can affect the price that you're going to pay or the yield that you can expect to get. Howdy, Yoder. From the frozen tundra of Western New York. Is there a West New York? I know there's an upstate. Nice. I'll have to look at a map later. There's a map over there. That's too far. Brandon, howdy. No question, you're the man. Excellent teacher. Keep it up. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And thank you for clarifying. No question. I appreciate the super chats. They matter. They mean something. I really hope this information is helping people. I think I'm failing at two things. One, I'm failing at growing a YouTube channel. Two, I'm failing at getting the information out on how much better life can be when work is optional. I've met people through YouTube who've started, who've invested or improved or added to their portfolios, and they've shared it, and that's awesome. I don't think I've met too many people in real life. Maybe, so my brother's kind of my catalyst, so I can't count him that I've had any impact on him whatsoever as far as being an investor. But my friend Dan, he didn't start investing until 18, and he kind of came to me. He's like, hey, you kind of know what's going on here. What would you do? And he retired earlier this year. Not that it matters, but 42 days after I did, in case Dan watches this. I just like to poke the bear. But I wish I was better at getting out how it doesn't matter if it's real estate. Yes, so I have the information on how to find deals, run your systems, do it, and it's the least amount of time in a month as possible for the most amount of cash flow, low number of units, all those kind of things. But it can be stocks. It can be starting and growing a business. It could be crypto. I don't know. Maybe there's people that timed out right and did whatever it is, that just to break the brain of the average person going 40 for 40 for 40. If we can get that out of people's heads, I think the world's just a better place. Afro-capitalist. How long you stay in the market that you do not cash flow before looking at another market? Texas property taxes are making it very difficult for cash flow. Same thing in Washington. Washington and Texas, our taxes reset every year. So we don't have that Prop 13 like California where you resets when you buy it, and then there's incremental increases after that, which is probably how that works. It's how I remember it. I don't live in California or invest there. Before leaving a market, I would look at different asset classes. Someone is investing there successfully. Local REI meetups, could be storage. Are you looking at small multifamily or single family houses? Have you looked at the other? Have you included the missed asset class of house with an ADU? And how are you sourcing your deals? If the answer is, I look on Redfin and Zillow, you're never going to see a deal. Every one of the deals I purchased showed up on Redfin or Zillow 2 or 3 months after I closed as pending. So I never would have even seen them. And I had to get my offers in within 2 hours of them hitting the MLS to even have a chance. So how are you finding your deals? If you're searching on the MLS, which is the route that I suggest, unless you're going to drive for dollars, send mailers, or all the other creative ways that a lazy person doesn't do. See, I qualify that as lazy. All my deals are from the MLS, set up auto searches, make it as easy as possible. I'd have at least 3 agents with auto searches set up because searching is nuanced. In over 10 years now of searching, I've never had more than one time, no, not more than once, but only one time has 2 agents sent me the same deal within a 24-hour period. So if you're making offers in a couple of hours, 24 hours is huge. Have 3 of them with auto searches set up. But you're going to have that missed asset class of house with an ADU. And you can't search for ADU. The listing agent might put up accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, mother-in-law house, granny flat, extra bunk house, something. You don't know. Find out what the local colloquialism for the lenders in your area, and then try to include as many as possible so that the search might show up, because home buyers don't want a second property. They don't want rentals. And investors usually search, if they're looking for small multifamily, for small multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, right? Or all of those buzzwords that tells you this is a rental. search for a house with ADU in your area before you move to another market. Millennial Mike and I live in almost the same area, and we chose very different strategies. So he house hacks, I house hack. So we're in a high cost of living area. House hacking is very important. If you're in a low cost of area, it kind of loses value. It's still a great way to do low down payment, better interest rate, but it's not going to save you as much every month as the impact it is for where we live, right? We're saving a couple $1,000s a month to do this. I'm actually being paid a couple $1,000s a month above saving a couple $1,000s a month to live here. But he chose to invest at a distance. And I think he had a mentor. He had a guy that was investing at a distance. The market was in place and he watched him for years. So he kind of knew that this was a vetted, proven system to do it. So he did that. I chose my area because I want the most amount of cash flow from the least amount of units, which the more expensive the area, the more likely that is to happen. It's going to be very hard. I'm cash flowing pure profit after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, and living here, $2,500 a month in profit a month on this one property. That's not going to happen in a place where the rents are $800 a month. That happens in a place where rents are $2,200 a month per unit, right? So for me, I kind of prefer the expensive area, but I'm not trying to do what Millennial Mike is doing. He's going to have a massive portfolio where he can recycle capital, which he's done. He's done burp, he's doing all of these, he's not lazy, strategies to grow faster. Probably have way more cash flow 10 years down the road than I do, but we have different goals. My goal was financial freedom. His is to grow a machine, create generational wealth. Like his kid's 10. I think he's 10, right? His kid's cute. He'll steal your girl. He's making this generational wealth for his kid. And while I love my kids, I don't want them to inherit generational wealth. I think it would ruin them. I don't want them to think my retirement plan is my dad passing away. I have nephews and nieces that are thinking that, but I don't want my kids to. My kids are financially stable and I want to get them on a property ladder, but I don't want them to be thinking that my inheritance is their ticket. So a bigger portfolio is not as important to me. So it might be a minute before I looked out of where you're at. Is there a market where you have a tactical advantage? Used to live there, know somebody who lives there, boots on the ground, and able to find the great deals? That could be a contributing factor. That's what Millennial Mike had. Someone he trusted, investing at a distance with the systems in place. Oliver, managing your tenants in case something breaks in the middle of the night that needs to be fixed. How many 24-hour handyman, plumbers, etc. do you normally have on speed dial? Two handymen. And then do a Google search for 24-hour emergency services for electrician, plumber, roofer, whatever. Any kind of tree service, residential tree service. You can have a tree fall. You're going to want immediate response. Just have that list. You don't even have to have contact. I find out which ones have 24-hour service. You can call some and get quotes to make sure you're comfortable with them, read reviews, that kind of stuff. But the handyman thing is far more important to me. Having two and having them, once they've worked with a tenant a couple of times and kind of built that I've seen your face relationship, sharing their contact info in a group format, like all three of our emails, so that the tenant can communicate with the handyman to have anything that's fixed that's less than $500 without needing approval from me. So 12 years, I'm trying to think of how many times I've had a 10 o'clock at night call. I think maybe twice. And neither time did I end up having to get out of bed. It was, handyman go. Okay, handyman can't solve it. Plumber go. Plumber solve. That was one. So 3 or 4 texts and 2 emails. And everybody's like, well, yeah, but then you paid a handyman and you paid a plumber. I was like, no, I didn't pay for nothing. A percentage of gross rents every single month from the tenants goes into an account for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. I'm happy my handyman made money that night. I'm happy the plumber, the guy on emergency call, got to charge from the second he left his door to the second he parked the truck to go and handle my emergency. That's what the guy has the job for, or the girl has the job for. That's their benefit from it. It could be overtime. They were benefiting in their own way. My tenants paid for that. It feels like we pay for it in the first year or two because you're building up the reserves and you're building that account. But once you have that set and the money from tenants is filling that account, I look forward to spending it. Like I have my handyman going around checking the dates on all the water heaters. Anything in a kind of dangerous, can mess up the floor or hit drywall place at 8-year mark is getting replaced. Anything on cement in the garage or in an area where it's going to damage the house if it breaks and it's just going to break, 12-year mark, going around just kind of, hey, go find some work for you to do, right? Make sure that the person that you're hiring is certified to do with the type of work you're having them do. But yeah, so twice in 12 years to have that call. But there's probably been 20 or 30 calls like that the handyman and tenant handle. Part of that is educating your tenants early on the 3 words that say, this is when you can call me. If it doesn't involve these 3 words, I want a text or an email, right? And before you ever call me, think, can you text this? But if these 3 words are used, I want you to think, okay, this justifies a call, and I'm okay if I'm your second call. So educate your tenants that if you're going to call me or communicate with me in any way, and one of these 3 words is going to be used, call me. Fire, I should get a call after the fire department. Flood, I should get a call. Blood, I should get a call after the police department, right? Fire, flood, or blood. Those are the 3 words that mean it's okay to call me, to bother me with a phone call. Outside of that, it's a text or an email. And anything that's important in text should be moved to email, because emails are admissible in court. And in most areas like mine, texts are not. Good question. All right. Has there been, or is there a property that made you want to potentially sell or give you the thought of selling? If so, why? And in the end, why didn't you, since you've never sold any properties? Great question. Yes. So I've had that thought too, because for like 2 years, I've been on the verge of financial retirement, like sitting back and go, okay, I'm never going to work again. But I know that there are some people who used to own rentals. So for like 2 years, I was going around and asking everybody, you used to own a rent. It's hard to find them. It's easy to find BiggerPockets, people who have rentals and people who maybe sold off a couple. And I'm going to have that answer to your question here in a second. But it's really hard to find until I found out they're all in the Choose FI group. They tried real estate, they hated it, so now they're a stock person. So there's still the investor mindset, financial freedom mindset. So stocks and businesses and real estate, there's 3 paths. Choose the one that works for you, right? And then I found out why did somebody own? Because real estate is giving me freedom. I could literally be in any country I want right now, scuba diving as much as I want, eating whatever food I want, driving any kind of car I want, anywhere on the planet, because of real estate. My brain was like, why would someone give that up when it's this? It wasn't easy to get here. The first 5 years kind of sucked, but my systems are in place now, and this is easy. 2 hours a week of what? 2 hours a month, I mean, of whatever it's going to be, is so much better than 50 hours a week of high stress running a company for those 50 hours, right? For more money. I'm making more money at this than I did at that. So why would someone quit? So the people who quit, the landlords who used to own rentals, they all made this one. Some, we got a divorce. Some, I got a health concern. Some, my kids didn't want to inherit it, so I sold it. Whatever, they had unique reasons. But the one that was consistent across the board in the people who quit with rentals, they made this one mistake. They didn't raise the rents. If they didn't raise the rents, it wasn't performing as well as the money could in another asset. So they got out of it. So if I had a property, lumberjack landlord had one where they had a high turnover, so he sold it. I totally get it. That one, for some reason, it's just not a good property to own. It's more work than it's worth, so he sold it. I haven't had that. When I first started, I wasn't educated. I thought I was going to replace my income, because I hadn't got to the point where I realized it's not replacing your income. It's getting more money than your living expenses. So your income had nothing to do with it. But that's where I was at the time. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to replace my income with no education whatsoever. I'm actually just going to buy real estate and it's going to pay me a bunch of money. Wasn't it? No books, no podcasts, no YouTube. So I made all of these mistakes on my first rental. I thought, there's no way I could trust a stranger. It's the thought that most of us mistakenly have in the beginning. So I wanted to rent to a friend, because if, I can trust a friend, can't trust a stranger. So since it's a friend, I don't need a lease, right? I'm just going to handshake this. It's stupid. I won the Darwin Award that year. And then since he was a single parent, I was a single parent. I kind of understood the struggle. So late rent became never rent. And when I went to the house to finally have a face-to-face conversation and say, hey, you haven't paid the rent in a couple months, what's going on? I found out he didn't live there. He actually moved someone else in, was collecting rent from them and keeping it. Totally made sense to him, because that was an arrangement between them, and he didn't have the money to pay me rent, and he wasn't living there. So somehow it made sense in his head. I totally get it. All my fault. I put that entire thing together and I made it possible, because I wasn't educated, didn't have my leases, wasn't running it like a business. Like, I did all these things. And so I tried to quit. Tried to give the property away. Luckily, this is where luck is involved for me. 2010 market, 29, 2010 markets had crashed, and real estate had crashed from 2008. I owed more on it than it was worth, so I couldn't even subject to it. I couldn't give it away. I owed 138,000. People could buy houses just like it for 100,000, so no one would take it. So I tried to, and luckily I was stuck with a house, ended up getting a tenant in there, and there's a couple of steps to it, but I got a tenant in there, found out, wow, if there's a good tenant in there, this is pretty cool. That's actually making me money now. If I could do that again. So I would have given away the house and never owned another rental had I the ability to then. So I'm glad I didn't. My mistakes were not educating myself, not running it like a business before I owned a rental. The second I had the thought, I'm going to reach financial freedom by buying rental properties, I should have said, how does a business run that does this? And that whole year would have saved a year of my life that way. Thank you for that question. It was great. Sean, how do lenders view using a home equity line of credit for down payment on an investment property? So a good question for your lender, because there's going to be some specifics on the products that they have available to lend to you, and then your situation. When you take out a home equity line of credit, it is going to increase your debt to income ratio by a payment of every month of 1% of the home equity line of credit. So let's say you take out a home equity line of credit of $100,000. Your debt to income ratio will be impacted by $1,000 a month payment. That's the number, the soft numbers that a lender has told me. We're going to say you could take out $100,000. Doesn't matter if you did or not. So if you take out 20 and you use that for the down payment, your debt to income ratio is still being hit, like you could take out the whole 100,000. So you could do that. But remember, when you're buying the new asset with the down payment of the home equity line of credit, can you pay it off before the adjustable rate kicks in? And so many people go, well, my HELOC's a fixed rate for so many years. At the end of those years, it's no longer fixed rate. So yes, it might be fixed rate for 5 or 10 years, but at the end of that, that's an adjustable rate. Can you pay it off in that amount of time? Which is the strategy that my brother used. He took out a home equity line of credit on his paid off property. He had 5 acres with a house with an ADU, and he had it paid off, took out a home equity line of credit, bought a property, fixed it up, paid off the HELOC, rinse and repeat, right? He's never had a mortgage. He's always just done the cash version like that. Got to 10, paid him off, paid off the last one. It's never worked a day since. Which is not true. He's never worked for money since. He's gone to California and worked like a doofus for my other brother because they like hard work. I don't get it. It's not me. So that's how lenders will look at it. Can your debt to income ratio handle it? And then what you need to think of is, will the property that you're purchasing produce a yield that includes the debt on the existing asset in the payment and get you the yield you're looking for? That's the first question. Do you have a deal that's going to produce enough yield to make the deal worth it, including the debt of the home equity line of credit? And remember, there's a couple things with home HELOCs that can happen. So let's say you have a $100,000 HELOC, and then you use $20,000 as down payment. So that loan is considered to have, for your credit score, a 20% credit utilization, right? So 20% is going to impact negatively a little bit of your credit score. And then let's say lending fee goes through the roof, and they go, we're going to close all HELOCs. You don't have to pay the $20,000 off really quick. That's lent out at that amount, but you can no longer borrow the other 80. What it does is it reduces the amount that you can borrow from 100,000 down to 20, because you have borrowed 20, which gives you 100% credit utilization on that line of credit. This actually happened to the lumberjack landlord. The numbers were different. I think it was 75,000, borrowed 25, canceled it down 25, gave him 100%, which can drop your credit score 30 points one day. So it's just things to be aware of. And credit score isn't the end all be all, but it is an impact when you want to invest. And then Brock took back a message to make me wonder forever and ever and lose sleep. Laura, my chat moved. So let's go up until I find my chat moved again, which is great because it showed me that there are some super chats that I missed. And then I'm going to get to Laura's thing here really quick. So how did I miss those? Saw Brandon's. I missed a couple. I'm so sorry. That's why I need a 10-year-old here to show me how to run the tech. So Tom, let's get some likes here. Howdy, Tom. Glad you're here too. If you haven't made money watching this guy, you must have gone to public school. I say that often. I said, some people are educated. I'm just sitting over here with a PhD. public high school diploma. Barely. 1.1 GPA, just enough to get in the Marine Corps. Because I was working 2 jobs in the last 2 years of high school. I moved out and I was doing 2 jobs. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And the Millennial Mike. Anyone interested, please send me a 15 to 20 second clip of your real estate New Year resolutions. I will compile them into a video for your channels. I want to play the video that Dividend Dave sent me. Let me know if you're okay with that, Dave. Just hold the phone up and play it here. So Millennial Mike says, please send them to me as a video file on Instagram in a DM. I want to do this for our followers so we can see who all is working together to make 2023 the best year yet. Let's hold ourselves and each other as a lumberjack, Dion, and one rental at a time family accountable. So an accountability video. I love it. It's a great idea. Thanks, Mike. That is a cool idea. I like that. And Dividend Dave sends another super chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then we're going to head to the bottom, Dave, and let me see if you're okay with me playing that video, but I'll find it here in a second if you are. And all of those chats happened before Brandon's. Like, that's how long I missed it. I got to get better at this. That's my New Year's resolution. Better at reading. Laura, I am still saving to build an ADU. Awesome. It is hard for me to comprehend, and even though I have the land, it may be more expensive to build than to buy. It may still work out due to the recession. A really important thing, if I was thinking of doing an ADU, Laura, and you might have heard me say this, but just in case somebody else is watching that's thinking the same thing, go to the YouTube channel, That ADU Guy. Derek's got some great information, That ADU Guy here on YouTube. And one of the things that was kind of an eye-opener for me is how the yield works. If you do a 2 or 3 bedroom ADU, my brain said the bigger is better. More likely to rent, less turnover. The cost of building a 2 or 3 bedroom was so much more than building a 1 bedroom or studio. And the rent wasn't different enough to where the yield was better on the smaller ADU. So if you're looking at saving, watch this content to figure out who knows which type of ADU is going to work best in your market. There might be other criteria that you look at, but since it was an eye-opener for me, maybe it can work for you too. Michelle, Marcus by Goldman Sachs is paying 3.25%. Ally, I think, pays more, but not sure what they use to approve you for an account. I was denied. Oh, okay. It's actually 3.3. Nice. Brock, I've been thinking about doing short-term rentals early on just for the better returns to eventually shift to long-term rentals. If I buy ones that also work as long-term rentals, do you still see this as risky? Thanks. If it'll work as a long-term rental, I don't think it's risky. And real estate is very local. There are some people who say short-term rentals are imploding because of whatever, and they must be looking at a different area because around Tacoma, there's not much, right? It's not a big destination. We don't have a Six Flags. We don't have Vegas, the casinos. We don't have whatever people would think would draw you here. But I have friends with short-term rentals here that have never had a vacancy, like not a very long one. And when they do rent out, it ends up being significantly more because they don't rent much to people in Washington. But I have a friend who has a unit in Bonnie Lake, BFE, right? No, middle of nowhere. But his ad is something like 1 hour from Rainier, 1 hour from Seattle, or 45 minutes from Seattle, 45 minutes from skiing. Like, if you're from Texas and you're looking at Washington and you're like, oh, that sounds like it's an hour from everywhere because you're at the Puget Sound, you got the skiing, you got the mountain, you're like, oh, right there. So it goes, keeps it full. So it doesn't have to be like my thing's right on the beach because Bonnie Lake is not by a beach, right? It's a ways. And he's doing great. So he's a brilliant, he worked in marketing, so he's got that mindset of what will attract the most people. And so if you have that strategy on how your short term is going to work, but remember the real estate X factor. The more work you're willing to do, so there's a XY axis, the more work you're willing to do, the more money you're going to make, right? Providing it's allowed. So short-term rentals can go away. That's why you want to make sure it works as a long-term rental. The more work you're willing to do, the more money you're going to make. The more risk you're willing to take, the more money you're going to make. So short-term rentals can go away. Something with the HOA, the municipality, Hyatt can win a lawsuit, whatever can change. And now you go to long-term rental. So are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to take the risk? You're going to make more money. I'm the lazy investor. I want to deal with a tenant. I text a tenant maybe twice a year, usually on average. It seems to be about. Although there's one, it's been like 3 years. I should see if they're still alive and not just on auto pay. But if they aren't, I wonder if I would contact anybody. So I think it's a sound strategy. Know that it works in your market. Do the research before you know if it's a good or great deal. The making sure it works as a long-term rental is like the baseline. And for me, if you're really serious about doing short-term rentals and you've done the work and self-educated yourself, I don't think the long-term would have to get the 10% yield that I do for me to take that risk, because then the first tier is short-term rental. You might step down to midterm. And I have a friend, Tony, who's going to come on and explain some midterm strategies that he's got going on, which I've now committed him to. But 3 months, 13 weeks, whatever it is for traveling nurses or corporate or anything like insurance, one of those kind of things, can maybe not make as much as short term, but make more than long term. So you have a couple of options there. And the last is, do you think it's too risky? No, not too risky, as long as, like I said, it would work as a short term. And then see if I can find the video, the creative video that was sent to me. See if my sound is up.
Jingle bells, school smell, cash flow all the way. Oh, what fun it is to fly on what all the crashers say. Merry Christmas, Dion. I hope you enjoyed this song.
So that is how you say Merry Christmas to somebody in a brilliant fashion, which will be in a video coming up soon. Somehow I will figure out how to get it in there. And I can't even do my catchphrase. It's awesome. Thank you for that, Dave. Super creative. Tiffany. Short-term rentals seem like a lot of work. Howdy, Tiffany. Yes, they do seem like a lot of work, but if you have the bandwidth, and you can do property management for, because like the tier of that, how much work you're willing to do is self-managing short-term rentals, then property management for short-term rentals, then property management or self-managing long-term, property management for long-term. Like the further down you get, the less money you're going to make. They usually take something like 35% or 30%. I haven't looked into it too much, so I'll find out what they're going to be charging your area. But there is a way to do it a more lazy way. More lazy, that's a word. Lazy way. Because I saw Dave. Okay. Howdy, Dave. When you say a property won't cash flow, does that mean 20% down at current interest rate? So it won't cash flow. I generally run 20 or 25% depending on what my lenders are currently requiring. So what am I actually putting into the deal? The one caveat is when I'm going to do a house hack, I look at it as if I was doing 20 or 25% down, even if I did lower down myself, because it's really easy to show a great return if you do a 0 down VA loan. Wrap the closing costs into it. You have an infinite return, right? But what if you're making $2 or $3 a month? Is that worth the risk of owning a property and managing a tenant, right? So yes, if it won't cash flow, it's the actual money I would have in and the interest rate I'm going to get. So you might say a property is not going to cash flow if I went with a conventional loan where I had to put a down payment. But if I do seller financing and I get like 1% interest, now it's going to cash flow. But can you actually get the deal? And if you're comparing apples to apples, a 0 down does, I would want to, so I invest in an expensive area. So I don't actually have I will only do this much per door. Like I don't want less than $100 per door because I haven't yet purchased a property that was less than $100 or $400 per door because I'm in such an expensive area, right? But I do a down payment and there's that much. If I was going to do seller financing with nothing down, but then it would only cash flow like $5 a year, that's an infinite return if it's nothing down, right? That's what I'm always careful with is, yes, I run the numbers like I did a bigger down payment. And the cash flow has to be enough to justify the time and energy it takes to, even with property management, have a property that you are taking the risk on. Dan, howdy. If it's been 2 weeks with no applications, would you start showing place before people apply? I have had a few inquiries, but no applications. I want people to apply to show they are serious. So part of that depends on the area that you're in and what your competition is doing. Some competitors will just do showings and then say you need to apply if you want to move forward because they have employees or the bandwidth or whatever. So if you don't have the time, here's the way I tier that. First, good job not asking, do I lower the rent to get somebody in there? Because that's not the first step. If you want to do showings before you accept applications, one, you're helping tenants avoid fraud. That's a real place. You actually can go in. You're not in another country just going to trick them into getting their deposit, right? You're showing that proof. I set up a time like an open house that fits your schedule. It's like, hey, everybody who's been interested, here's we're doing the showing. You don't have to do an application. If you do an application, you'll get your own showing and you can be first in line. But if you don't want to do an application until you've seen the place, Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. or Saturday, noon to 3, everybody's going to show up. So there might be more people than you there to look at it, but you're welcome to come at that time. So that's what I would do before I would just start doing one-on-one showings. Do a showing for the people who haven't done an application. And if they do an application, those are the people that get their own like one-on-one. I need to make that video. Thank you. That was a great question. John, what books from Audible do you recommend for 2023? I already own the hard copies of Zuber's 2 books. I'm in the middle of redoing his one rental at a time in the first third. It's been a busy month, but I want to finish that and get that out on Audible for him. 15 Conversations is out on Audible, but if you have the hard copies, you're good there. I really liked Set for Life by Scott Trench. That Audible is good. Scott Trench reads it, so you get the author's narration of tone and inflection. And then Scott Trench and Mindy Jensen did another book after that. This has got a long name. It's like the First Time Homebuyers something, goes on like 3 more lines. But Mindy Jensen, Scott Trench did that. Those are 2 good ones that I recommend. Kind of, if you haven't done it, they might even just be on YouTube. But Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon. You should definitely get, so Kiyosaki's got like 19 books, maybe more now. There's 2 that I recommend to everybody. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which you probably have already read or listened to, but Cash Flow Quadrant. Listen to Cash Flow Quadrant 2 or 3 times until it just becomes kind of subconscious. On any time you hear about somebody making money, you instantly put them in. They're paying 40% in taxes or so because they're an employee. They're paying 60% in taxes because they're self-employed and they own a job. They're paying 20% in taxes because it's capital gains and they own a business. Or they're paying 0% in taxes like me because they're an investor. Like you just categorize everybody right off the bat on at least the majority of how their income is made to help you make decisions quicker that will have you in the right quadrant. So that's kind of my short list. And I'm probably forgetting some really important ones because I have on my Audible. So it's the Audible app in my library. Why does it not show me? It's like looking up all of them. But there's like 600 and something titles in my Audible. I am an Audible addict. Yeah, 583 Audible books in there. So it's kind of hard to remember which ones I like the most. I just know that constantly taking in content for a period of time doesn't have to happen forever, but it has to happen for now. Made work optional. Made it to where I can work any job I want in the future, which is more than likely going to be none. Great question. Thank you. All-nighter hider. Took me a year before I really started understanding George. I kept listening and learning, was definitely a commitment. Yep. So super smart guy. It would take me that long to follow it too and to get there. I want to make sure I'm not missing any more of those chats. Zero to hero. What are the words that you ask your real estate agent to put in your search that are more specific than just duplex, ADU, side by side? So small multifamily, house with ADU, DADU, GADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, no HOA, no short sale, no foreclosure. The no's are as important as the yeses to me. I don't have anything like side by side because I'll take an over under. It's just not one of my preferred criteria. It's in a footprint, so it's 2 counties that I invest in. that aren't very populated. So if I was in a Sacramento area, I might narrow it down to zip code or something, but in my area, 2 counties works. I've also lived here long enough to know the areas that I would avoid and what economic drivers are there. Trying to think of what else is in my search with the agents. I try to leave it as vague as possible because I'd rather eliminate deals than have an agent send me limited deals, if that makes sense. I'd rather take the time to look and go, yep, nope, yep, nope, yep. Oh, that's going to take 10 minutes to look at, right? Like go through a couple hundred of them, which I think we're going to do again this Friday with the members only, is we're going to go through leads from realtors. So mine and the viewers who will join the Zoom and be able to share theirs, and we'll look at deals and tell you what knee-jerk reaction thoughts are, with the caveat of, I don't know your market, I don't know your goals, I don't know your resources. I can't tell you yes, buy that deal or don't buy that deal, but I could say, here's how I would look at it. Wandering Talk. Howdy. What's up? Zero to hero. I don't have a spouse. I'm not stupid. That was an inaccurate thing to say. I don't have a spouse because my people chooser is broken. And a contributing factor is to reach financial freedom. I don't know that I would have known anybody who would have put up with the last 10 years to get what's coming in the next 10 years. But that's just me. Wandering Doc. Hyder, I still don't really understand George. So like I said, super smart, super high level thinking. If he took the time to break down, he probably is a great teacher, probably has the ability to say, here's what I mean by this, and take apart each thing, kind of the way I try to do my content. Like here's the overview, and then here's each piece, and it's in a little 10-minute video. It was listening to Uneducated Economist and Gaiman talk where I was like, there's a whole nother level to this money thing, right? Bedros, that grape juice though, exactly. Wandering Talk. Every single video is shocking insights revealed. The truth will shock you. You won't believe. Lauren, to Millennial Mike, do you have another way to send you a video? The Gen X in me doesn't trust social media. Email me, Lauren. I will connect you. Anybody can email me, and I will connect you with Millennial Mike if you don't have the version of connecting with him that he positive. There you go. Afro capitalist. And sometimes, before I get into this, sometimes it takes me a couple of days to get to emails. If I don't answer you within like 2 days, email me again, because I could have lost it. And I do answer all emails, but sometimes it's up to a couple of days later. So, because I'm so busy. It's actually because there's a lot of emails to filter through. Afro capitalist, do you recommend taking the 401k match, free money, and tax deferment while saving for my rentals, or is it a waste of time because of my money is trapped? Great question. I have a couple videos on my channel on how retirement accounts suck. Here's the quick chronology for me. Before I understood money, I maxed out my retirement accounts. So I thought, okay, I'm going to avoid taxes. Hopefully I'm going to retire broke, and hopefully I'm going to retire in a lower tax bracket, and hopefully taxes are going to be less in the future, because I've never met government. I don't know how they do things. And all of that didn't make sense. So once I figured out how to invest, and I figured out in a rental, not only am I going to get cash flow now, which my 401k doesn't do, I'm going to get appreciation on multiples of what I invest, which my 401k only gets a match. I'm going to get principal pay down, where tenants are going to pay off debt on my asset, which doesn't happen in my 401k. I'm going to get better tax advantaged benefits, better tax benefits with real estate than any retirement account. Real estate is better than tax-free. I'm carrying forward losses when I showed hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits, right? That doesn't happen in a retirement account. But you worded your question right. Once I figured that out in 2020, luckily, I got affected by COVID and the pandemic and was able to empty out the $80-something thousand that was in my retirement account and not pay a penalty. I happily paid the taxes, put the money to work in a rental. I continued to contribute for the match until I retired in July of this year, July 5th, it was the 5th, it was the day after the 4th. So July 5th this year, I retired. Right up to that last paycheck, I put in just enough to get the match. It's free money. I hated it. I emotionally didn't like that money being trapped in a retirement account. So in a week, I'm contacting them and saying, hey, there's not that much left, but there's some in there from the match, and it's down 20% or whatever, but I don't care. I'm going to empty it out because next year I don't have any W-2 income, so I'll be in the lowest tax bracket. And then I'll put that money to work somewhere. So yes, I didn't like it, but logically it makes the most sense to continue to contribute for the match. If somebody has a choice of working for two companies and one has a 401k and one does not, look at the entire compensation package, because what happens usually is employers will go, this work is worth $30 an hour. Well, let's do a match. Okay, so that person's going to get paid $25 an hour, but we're going to match. Same amount of cost, whatever the math would actually be for the employer to spend on the employee. But one of the routes gets it in the match. So if you work at a company and they have a 401k, you should be getting the match. But if you have a choice of working at one that has one and one that doesn't, look at the compensation package. And if it's the same, but one is giving you the money in a match and the other one is giving you your paycheck, choose the one that's giving you your paycheck. So in that case, I just wouldn't have a retirement account because I hate retirement accounts. It's almost like they want you to work until you're old. Who can enjoy retirement? Retiring in your 60s. So working until 60, working until 70 is totally fine. I'll say this one more time. Having to work until you're any age sucks. Wandering Doc. I find it hard to believe that George is shocked every second that he read something. I've only listened to the one. I haven't listened to the others. Yeah. Zero to hero. Afro, he doesn't denigrate employer matches, doesn't suggest much after that, though. Very good summation, much better than the one I did. Buddies, howdy. Would you recommend refinancing now or waiting? No one can tell you if you're ready for that. Like no one can tell you when to buy a rental. If you weren't here for the beginning of the video, I talked about a bunch of times when you shouldn't buy a rental or should buy a rental based on the wrong advice. People telling you, wait for the crash, wait for interest rates to change, wait for, what did I do? Wait till you have enough cash to do it all cash. All of these things were wrong. The only two times it's the right time to buy rental is the first one is you are ready, which means you've educated yourself, you know your market, you know your strategy, you have the reserves, you've built up the whatever it is to be ready. And the second thing is you found a great deal. Right? So those are the two things that can tell you when to buy a rental. Both things have to line up at the same time. No one can tell you when to refi unless they had all of the information, which they won't. Nobody will, not even your lender. So the first question that comes up anytime you want to do a refinance, it isn't what are interest rates or what is prices or what is rents. It's none of that. Those are all parts of the yield on the thing you're buying. The first question before you do a cash out refinance, take out a second mortgage, which is what I would recommend if you have a good interest rate on your current mortgage, or take out a home equity line of credit or sell in 1031. The question that becomes up before any of that is, do you have a place to deploy those funds that will get you a better return than not taking that money out, and it justifies the debt on the existing asset? So what are you going to do with the money? What will it produce? And do you have confidence in your ability to do that? So I don't recommend emptying out your retirement account like I did in 2020. I had been investing for like 7 or 8 years, and I had the strategy down where I knew with confidence what my return was going to be and how the process was going to go. So I was comfortable doing it. I wouldn't do that if it was your first year, first deal. That's when we tend to make our biggest mistakes, right? I wouldn't take out a home equity line of credit or refinance to buy my first rental because you're probably going to make mistakes and buy an alligator and mess up your timeline and have more carrying costs, a stronger burn rate. Like all these things are going to go wrong that you don't know to look for yet. Don't put your home at risk, your retirement account at risk, or anything like that until you've learned the systems with confidence to do that. So what stage of investing are you in? What is the use of the money and your expectation of it justifying the refinance? Then you look at price, rate, rents, what's the yield going to be on the asset? So that all comes up after the first question being satisfied of what am I going to do with the money? Then which way do you go? Because a refinance sounds great, right? But what if you have a 3% interest rate? Now you're refinancing at 6%. Second mortgage starts to look better. And if it was inverted, like a lot of people like Matt and Zuber and Lumberjack Landlord in the 2020, 2021, refinance so much of their stuff to pull money out to have dry tinder for their deals that they're doing now, right? That made sense because interest rates were going down and were low then. They even tried to tell me that I should refinance my one paid off property. We're in different situations, so it didn't make sense to me. Bedros. When you visit Colombia, what areas in Bogota do you like the best? Zona Rosa, Park 93. So I didn't actually go. I flew into Bogota. Did I share that? I'll share this. All right. So I travel with my brother. So two guys, kind of about the same age, traveling together, going to Colombia. What do you think people are traveling for? We're scuba divers, right? We're going to scuba dive. You get off the plane in Bogota to transfer, because we went to Pereira, right? So Pereira, Manizales, and then to Cartagena. So we went to all these other places in Colombia, but not Bogota. We didn't go anywhere else in Bogota. There are certain things that are legal in Colombia that aren't legal where I'm from. So we get off the plane to walk across to the other plane, and a person in a suit walks up to us and asks us, just casual conversation, would you like one of these? Because this is legal here. And I'm not going to say what it was, and it wasn't drugs, but it was something that's legal there that's not legal here. My brother and I, both of us thought, where's the camera? Like, this is a sting operation where they're just going to arrest these foreigners because they don't know what's legal here. So it was an eye-opener. But no, that was my one and only experience with Bogota, and I'm sure it's a great place. Some friends told me I need to go there to go to the salt mines to see the statue in the salt mines. So that's my next trip. I'm going to go into Bogota. I don't know where it's at, and find the salt mines with the statue in it. But the rest of my time in Colombia was kind of all over the place. Most of the places were friendly. Yeah. All-nighter hider. I'm ever learning. Me too. Still in the learning phase. Laser focused solutions. Howdy. Love that I logged on and saw you are live. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thanks you for spending time here. Totally forgot it was Tuesday. This is how I know what day of the week it is. It's really the only reoccurring thing. Because of you, Mike and Matt, so many more, I'm on my way to financial freedom. Let's go. Keep me updated. Let me know how it goes. I can't wait. Dividend Dave. Have you ever thought about setting up community classes to teach real estate investing? Community classes. So there is, so I've thought about it, but, and so there is a version of adjunct faculty where you can go on to community colleges and actually teach different things. I've taught courses on job placement, resume, job theory, that kind of stuff to military people coming out of prison. I ran a nonprofit that does job placement assistance, kind of getting into all that. I have not done the real estate thing for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not trying to create another job. Right? I was trying to retire to financial freedom too. I'm actually trying to not monetize it. Like the super chats are great, right? It tells YouTube, share this content. There's 86 people right now. There was almost 100 a few minutes ago. And that's because YouTube said, hey, there's some people that have done super chats. We should share this. There's people who like this content. So that's the value in that to me more than the money. My money comes from rentals. Like I will take the one rental at a time class. I will take the lumberjack landlord class. I will take these. Part of them I will do reviews. So I'll tell people whether they suck or not. I will tell them that, I have content in both of the courses. That part might suck. But those are guys that are making their money on the asset class that they're teaching. I don't want to take a class from somebody who is making money off of the courses and the 150, 200,000 people following on YouTube, 4 million people following them on YouTube, whatever it is, unless they're still making money on the asset class, right? If I taught real estate, the best format for me is this, because I get to have that dopamine hit when I help you guys get on the property ladder. I guess local would work. So I've thought about it. Haven't done it because I'm not looking to make a job. And I don't think I want to take courses where some people take courses for credits. Lars, howdy. I don't invest in crypto, but I do use it to send and receive money from others as they can't take it back once they send it. Where on Venmo, Cash App, etc., they can lie and take it back, right? And Venmo now has an actual crypto thing, part to it, right? So you're right. With Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, they can take it back, but they can with a check too, up to 14 days later. Literally, deposit a check in your bank. 10 days later, they can go to the bank and say, "I changed my mind on that check. Give me the money back," and they will. We've experienced that several times at the CDL school. There are uses. So I love the way you said it, Lars. Blockchain and crypto. Blockchain might be an investment, but crypto to me is not an investment. It's a currency. Did you see the difference? I do not invest in the American dollar. Like I don't go buy dollars. I have some friends who go and buy Colombian dollars or Colombian pesos or the baht for Thailand, and they go, okay, it's up now, so I'm going to buy, and it's down now, so I'm going to sell. Whatever the strength of the dollar, they really get into that. It's their asset class that they like. I don't see crypto as I'm going to buy it and hold it until it's worth more. I think the real utility, the usefulness of crypto is decentralization, crosses borders. The negatives are unregulated, super easy to get ripped off. Like I have a friend who's very smart, runs a business. There's dozens of employees, doing great. Purchased crypto in a wallet was taken. Like that doesn't happen if you're not buying crypto. That doesn't happen with money. You go to Bank of America, you put it in the bank, your account doesn't disappear. And if you have, like you have a mistake, they actually make it right. Like it's a regulated industry. So as much as crypto people say its benefit is that it's not regulated, it kind of needs regulation. We're seeing that now with however many tens of billions of dollars that disappeared with FTX. Watching to see how that runs. That's why I like Greg Dickerson, great content on what's going on in the crypto world. Not a crypto guy, so I can't talk to it, but I can tell you that's my opinion. I don't see it as investment. Some people do, and did great at it. Some people aren't doing so great at it, but I see it as currency, right? Like that transacting with it, the security that they can't take it back. That's what's we're going to see more and more of that, and it sucks, but regulation might be the way to make it have more faith in the asset. Because here's the thing. I'll probably butcher this. Top of mind awareness. Why I invest in real estate. I have faith in the asset, right? Rents go up. And over 100 years since we've tracked the data, rents have never gone down in a 5-year period. So I have confidence that rent's going to go up. So I borrow money against the asset because I have faith in it, right? If you knew, Lars, if you absolutely had a crystal ball that worked and you can go ahead 2 years into the future and you knew that Bitcoin was going to be worth $30,000 a coin or whatever, but more than it is now at the 16, 17 that it's hovering at, right? But you factually knew that was it. We'd somehow go out and figure out how to get mortgages to go into as much debt to own as much crypto as possible right now as an investment, not as a currency, because we knew it was going to go up, right? Well, we don't know. We don't know which coin's going to go up. We don't know if Bitcoin's going to go up. We know it probably will. We don't know when, right? So we don't take out a bunch of debt to buy crypto. People who did are not doing so great. But we feel that way with real estate. I trust the asset class. The scams, the stable coins going away, the FTX problems that we have, the faith in crypto is kind of at an all-time low. It's why you see a lot of the channels are just kind of quiet about it. The faith in the asset is gone. So regulation might bring faith back, which would then, I believe, cause some of the coins, who knows which one, to go back in value, higher in value. Rob, howdy. Don't apologize for being late. Vacationing on the river. That sounds terrible. I looked at a cruise. So I'm doing a cruise coming up next year, Mediterranean, Greece, that kind of stuff. But I looked at one that goes up the Mississippi. Holy crap, there's some rich people in this world. I'm looking at a cruise. It's like, oh, $5,000-$7,000 a person. Sure, take a couple people, have fun. I look at Mississippi, and like the cheap one is like 22 grand, like per person for half the time. What happens on that cruise that makes it that much better? Something, because they're running them. Oh, that water almost got me. In my eyes, water. Lars, I have a friend that invested in properties overseas, and they only use crypto for the reasons and turn it into cash on Coinbase and withdraw every transaction, but keeps no money on the exchange. Good call. That's something that Minority Mindset recommends often too. Use the exchange, don't store on the exchange, because that's where the money is disappearing from, right? Everything I said is not something I understand or don't want to understand. But I understand it as an asset class. I tell people, like, there's thousands of ways to financial freedom. Starting and growing a business, thousands of different types of businesses, right? Stocks, a ton of ways to invest in stocks. Crypto, ton of ways to use it to gain wealth, and real estate. So I'm not saying to invest in one or the other. I'm saying which one excites you. If crypto is the thing that excites you, and you're using it like this as a currency, as a way to give value to money, because current is what gives it value. Sure. I also don't buy gold, or so I have have 2 ounces of gold, 1 ounce, and then 10 ounces, and then some silver, right? But it's more novelty than investment. And I don't want to grow a business, and I don't want to own stocks. So that doesn't mean that I'm saying any of those is not viable. They're just not for me. And you're back, catching up at two times. So I'm sorry for the times I spoke fast when I got excited, because I'm sure that sounded fun. And then Dividend Dave also took a message back to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what it was. But maintaining that was his work. Nice. Millennial Mike, I will leave no money to my son who is 6. Wow. He talks like he's 10 or older. Read The Millionaire Next Door. Leaving money is a terrible idea. I will teach my son how to make money. That is all. It's beautiful. Very well said. I love it. Lars. Anyway, I thought I would give a real world reason why people use it in real life and not the reason some YouTuber said to use it. Whenever I go overseas, I use crypto to save money on currency fees. Great. Perfect. If there's a use to use it as a currency, I see it as the investment. We can all look back and go, look, if you bought Amazon and you had $1,000 of it in 2004 and you kept it and didn't touch it because you didn't sell it when it went to 8 and thought you were a billionaire, you'd might be a billionaire now, right? We can logically look at time travel being a thing. So if you bought Bitcoin when it was 7 cents a coin, yeah, you'd have a lot of money. Would you have held on to it? Would you have sold it 3,000? Would you have sold it 68,000? Or would you have kept it at 68,000 and now be counting how much money you lost because we're back at 17? Investment for me, not so much. Currency, kind of looking forward to how it happens. Kind of like NFTs. I don't see NFTs as an investment right now, but I see them changing the way we transact, being tied to deeds, things like that. Good point, Lars. I like it. All-nighter hider. Paid work takes priority, but not by much. Tom Kine. What are you most proud of at this time in your life? Good question. At this time, hardcore. My kids, of course. Mostly, they're not on the pole or in prison. At least 50% of them survived to the age of 18, so my sacred duty was satisfied. They turned into amazing people. I think they had a weird example of parent. I've never had a successful relationship, so that they've been able to is mind-boggling. You know, your thoughts trapped in a bottle. And so I'm most proud of my kids. That'd be the thing, like any parent said. I do tell them that they are living, breathing proof that I never developed time travel, though. So it's not like I wanted kids. I just had them. Trying to think of most proud. That's a good question because I haven't thought of it. That's why I like these questions. What is top of mind awareness? I keep things in my mind that help me make a snap decision on how to buy the next asset and to continue to make work optional. Growing a YouTube channel to 10,000 to me was a not expected feat that I thought was pretty cool. I spent most of my life telling my friends and family and my kids that I was going to work until I died. I'm just one of those guys that's never going to have any kind of financial stability, let alone financial. I didn't even know independence was a thing. So to have reached it, not starting until 40, and being able to retire at 52, which is how old I was this year when I retired, giving me an extra decade or 15 years of retirement at an age where I can still physically enjoy being retired. I'm proud of that. What I'm not proud is that I haven't found a way to get it to more people so that more people can do the same thing. I don't think the community of financial independence yearly will ever be big enough to make an actual impact on the economics of society. Like, we need investors, but there's not enough people that are ever going to do that. Too many people. I mean, it's in the low single-digit % of people who will actually put money to work and retire before 60. Like, that's not a significant enough number. Wish that was bigger. It's a great question. Thank you. And then trying to make sure I'm not missing anything here. My chat moved. There we go. John, Texas. Howdy. What's your process when inspection of a property reveals major issues? Roof, foundation, electrical. Do you walk away, negotiate a lower price, or demand the seller make repairs? I've done all of those. So I did one with an inspection, and luckily it appraised low. It had water damage on almost all the joists. So there was massive foundation work that was going to need to be done, more than I like to do. I haven't done a rehab yet, so that would have been a lot for me. Probably nothing for lumberjack. He'd have been like, oh, that's Tuesday. Let's see what happens after that, right? But I walked away. That's the one of the two deals that I've walked away from now. The second one was it needed a full gut. I think there was an eviction in the ADU to have to go through that we couldn't confirm. Like there was a couple of other things going on there. I still need to make that video, but I'm waiting until it's off the market because I don't want to say things about a listed property that people could find and then say I cost them a deal. So I don't want to talk about that deal too much yet. I bought one that needed a roof, and I used it to partially negotiate down the price. And I included the cost of the roof in my cost to acquire numbers. Still got the yield I was looking for while house hacking. So the roof. So I've done that. I looked at the expense in my cost to acquire, and I negotiated price down. Other ones I've negotiated price down on things that didn't need done. So I've kind of done all three of those. I think it's a conversation, and it's unique to the deal each time, and what your interactions with that seller are like. Like the one time the seller telling me he's in the middle of a 1031 exchange, I knew I was already second position of a deal that had fell through, and the person was on a timeline, gave me all kinds of negotiation power. So that's a good question. I've done all of those, and I would look at all. None of them are a deal breaker. It's will I get the yield I need, and the one where it was like too much work, ADU issues, and rising water level issue that wasn't just the septic is going to fail soon, like the foundation was going to start to have rising water issues. So all of these elements all together on one deal made it like almost even free. I probably wouldn't have taken it kind of thing, let alone for a couple $100,000. Good question, but it's unique each time, and it's all negotiation. It's all calculate the math. And do you have the bandwidth to want to do it? I prefer rent ready or already occupied. That doesn't mean I haven't bought places like the one that needed a roof. Bought the place. Insurance said we can't do it. So I got construction insurance that covers for a month. And then you go, okay, I got 1 month to get the insurance done. So that was like $2,500 for a year. So I had 1 month of that. And then as soon as the roof was done, I get my regular insurance in. It's $900 for the year. So you get a big rebate check on because you're not paying for the full month. So there's like a weird way to get that done. Like I said, every single time I bought a property, it seems like there was something weird that I'd never seen before that I thought was going to be a deal breaker, but then I figured out how to handle it, and then I went on. So all but two, because two of those I just backed out of. J Camp, howdy. Have you used cost segregation taxes on your rentals? At one point, is it worth it to do so? I have not. Lumberjack Landlord has, and it is worth it to do it if you have a W-2. And you qualify as a real estate professional. So I could probably do cost segregation against rental income, but since I'm already carrying forward a loss, it wouldn't make a difference for me. I want to depreciate because cost segregation takes some of the things that are depreciated at 5 years and 15 years and does it all at once in 1 year. Sounds great. You get 25% of your depreciation in 1 year. But now you only have 75% of your depreciation left for the remainder of your 27.5 years, which could negatively impact me in the future. So if I had the W-2 income that I could write it off against, I would. I haven't because I don't qualify as a real estate professional. I don't have a spouse who does either. So Lumberjack Landlord talks about that. We're doing a live tomorrow on One Rental at a Time at 9 a.m. And we're doing a live on Friday on Lumberjack Landlord's channel. I'm not sure the time, probably 9 Pacific. And then he'd be great to ask how cost segregation works. He does a better breakdown than me. I've got the idea, but I haven't been through it, right? All-night hider. Scuba is relaxing. Yes, it is, especially boat diving. If you go out on a boat, like in Thailand, you get on a boat, you got to do two morning dives, 2 afternoon dives. They provide lunch. Like it's great. When you dive here in Washington and you have the Puget Sound, almost every dive is like a 200-foot trek with your gear from where you can park. So the water's relaxing. The getting in, the getting out, not so much. No, and that's it, Tom. I do not. So Tom Kine, Do you think you get enough hours for cost segregation? I don't, and I'm not going to commit fraud. You have to work more than 751 hours in real estate. And that, if it included hunting for deals and buying deals, maybe, but I think it's just the managing and everything. 2 hours a month, right? So not quite enough. And you have to work more in real estate than you do in your W-2, which every CPA I've ever heard says anybody who's been audited who has a W-2 doesn't qualify. So the one time it really works is when you work in W-2 employment and your spouse doesn't, and they qualify for the real estate professional, and then you put them together. Not worth me going and getting married, but that is a strategy that works. All-nighter hider. Flying underwater is amazing. It really is. The first time you get to a point where you find a bowling ball and you pick it up and you push it and it floats across the water, you realize you're at the pressure where a bowling ball floats. Beautiful. Anna K. Howdy, Anna. Thank you for reiterating about raised rents for longevity as a real estate investor. Yeah, it's one of those things. We don't want to like jack up the rent, scare a tenant, and have tenant turnover. But if you learn the binder strategy and your tenants ask you to raise the rent, you still have low tenant turnover, and you're raising it enough to make it a good return. Graham Stephan sold some of his rentals because he can get a better return doing almost anything else with his money, because for 10 years he didn't raise the rent. Imagine right now if you could pay 2012 rents almost anywhere. That'd be great, right? You'd never move. They'd sell the property because it's not making any money. Corby Carter, howdy, blah, and other motivational sayings. Exactly. Motivational sayings almost mean nothing unless they're coming from somebody who's achieved something you want to. If they achieve something you want to, and that saying is what gave them the mindset, I'll write that stuff down. Zero to hero. Around what years are your properties? 100 years old or like 30 years of age? All of them, except for one, are 1980 to 92. So they're in that 20 to 30 year bracket, 30 to 40 year bracket. Yeah, 30 to 40 year bracket. One is 1921. So if it's going to be an older property, I'm going to look at when were upgrades done. When was the PEX piping put in? When was knob and tube wiring replaced? Those kind of things. So if it's before 1979, asbestos and lead paint can be an issue. So make sure you go through all the checks on that. Have your inspection done, know your local laws. Know your area. I know that in Matt's area, because he's East Coast, the country was alive longer in the East Coast. So most of your properties are going to be 100 years old. On the West Coast, we're mostly undeveloped land out here, right? So younger properties, 20. I like that 30 to 40 year bracket. I don't want to buy something built after 2005. I don't think it would cash flow for another 10 or 15 years. In everything I've looked at, every single small multifamily that's 2005 or newer in my area is so expensive that I won't limit it. I'll notice the limitation of that's the bracket that I buy in, but I'm not going to limit my searches to that. T-Blaze, howdy. What's up? What's another Tuesday? Hanging out with friends. Brock, did you have the major mind shift that most investors did after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad? Yes, I did too. But I just wanted to let you know that your channel has had the same amount of influence on me. That is awesome. That is what I was hoping, is that this would get the information to more people. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great book. It's great mindset. It's not how to, right? I'm not really how to on self-managing. I will do some things on this because I don't do much with my tenants. I have very limited tenant turnover. I don't do rehabs, like all this kind of stuff. So I refer you to the lumberjack landlord on that kind of stuff to say, actually, you're a landlord. How do you do it? I am the simple format of why invest in real estate, how invest in real estate, what strategy is going to work for you, how to know what's working in your market, like those kind of simple concepts, which I like Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was kind of missing. I will quote Cash Flow Quadrant because that mindset shift on taxes was probably the most important one for me, more so than making work optional. It was understanding we don't have a tax penalty system. We don't tax people for making more money. That's a stupid thing that most unwealthy people think. They think, oh, the more money I make, the more money I'm going to pay in taxes. How you make your money determines how much you make in taxes. You pay in taxes. And the government wants certain things. We want creativity. We want GDP. We want more housing. So if you do these things that create that, you're going to be taxed less. Like, never having that thought in my life until I was 40 was like, oh, This working and this overtime and this pension and this all this kind of stuff, even if it all worked out, sucks. I'll be so old I can't enjoy retirement when I can finally retire. Instead of, they want you to own rentals. They're not going to tax you. They're going to tax your tenants, property taxes to own rentals. But that makes an economy. There's an incentive tax program, not a tax penalty program. Thank you for that, Brock. That's awesome. And then Dave K also took back a message to make me lose thought, lose sleep, and never know. It was good music in that, William Mike. I agree. Rob, Dion, have you used Privy or Crexy? No. Would take research to even know what they were. Sorry, I wish I had more knowledge. I don't. All-Nighter Hider, George's whiteboard videos are well broken down and easy to digest if one knows the language of finance. So right, so whiteboard videos. I haven't seen any of his videos. I've only seen the one he did with Uneducated Economists. So now I'm probably going to go and check him out. I do know that one thing that I've said that people said, he said the same thing. So I probably want to find these videos is how did the Soviet government convince the Russian citizens that they were better off with empty store shelves than the United States was in the 40s and 50s when we had fully stocked shelves? Like that was a concept some Mark in like the 7th grade teacher broke down in some really cool history class that I was taking, and I've kept it ever since. Telling people in the communist Soviet country that they're so wealthy that the producers can't keep the shelves stocked, that's why they're so off. Look how unfortunate the Americans are. They have all this stuff on their shelves. The stores are rich because the people are so poor, they can't buy this stuff at the shop. That concept, I said that in a couple of videos, and a bunch of comments came back and said, hey, that's what Gammon says. So somehow we took the same history class. I need to go and find that video. Dale, howdy. Will the bank finance a conventional mortgage on a property that has an ADU or a granny flat on a single loan, or would have to have more than 2 mortgages? Thanks. So it's a single loan. It's single family lending, even though it has an ADU, which is great. But the value of the mortgage is based on the value of the properties, the buildings and the property. So it can include the garage, right? So it doesn't have to be an ADU. It's the structures, the improvements to the land and the land, so that if it's burnt down, you have to have insurance so that the mortgage company is made whole based on the appraisal of the entire thing. So they don't do mortgages on each building. You probably could. I'm sure there's some lenders who will say, oh, we totally do, just one extra line of credit on your ADU or whatever. I don't know how that would work, but it's one mortgage for a house with an ADU. It's one mortgage for a duplex, one mortgage. I have a duplex and a single family house. So one of them is an ADU. I don't know which one. On one property, I call it my triplex because it's 3 units on one property. It's one mortgage. I have 2 insurance policies because the original way it was structured in county didn't give an address that the insurance company had. So I have a policy on the house, policy on the duplex. Combined, it's $700 a year. So it's not like it doubled in price because there were 2 policies, but it was weird to be written up that way. But the mortgage is one mortgage for the property, which includes the 2 structures, 3 units. Hope that answered that question. Financial firefighter. I love your view on retirement accounts. Thank you. Especially a fire, first responder like yourself who's working towards a pension. But you took all that money out, right? And purchased, I think it was 14 in 1 year. So like you found a better use for that money. Pay the penalty, pay the taxes, or unless you did it during COVID, I didn't find that part. Did you waive the penalty? Brilliant. Good move. So if you haven't checked out Financial Firefighter, he's got great info. He's done some interviews, has his channel. A more motivated hard charger format of investing than what I did. Mine was this slow and lazy, boring way. Boring is sexy to me. But All-Nighter Hider. Great retirement thoughts. Being responsible for one's own retirement is best. Totally agree. Zero to Hero. Do you know anyone who has a rental and rents out by the room? Example, 5-bed, 3-bath, 700 room, 3,500 a month in rent. So I would recommend Todd Baldwin. Check out his content. He invests right here close to us. We've done several videos together. Almost got to meet in person at a couple of meetups. Haven't met him in person yet, but that's what he does. He does by the room in an area. Has some great strategies on how he handles shared spaces, limiting tenant turnover, like keeping tenants happy, never raising the rent, doing it a certain way where the turnovers actually what keeps his rents where it needs to be. One thing that I take away from his information that would be important if I was ever going to do something similar is the closest comparison you can get between bedroom and bathroom counts, the better. The less times you have people sharing a bathroom, the better the experience is going to be. I have a friend who rents out a room. His house is split to where the master is two, there's two like master suites, I guess, that you would call, or primary suites, whatever, that have bedroom, bathroom, and he rents that one out. He did traveling nurses. He's done, just roommate kind of thing. By the room is usually going to be more rent than you're going to get as an aggregate than you would by renting it out as one unit. More work, more personalities. Know your legal restrictions in your area. I think some parts of our state actually just repealed or remanded or relieved or removed or whatever the technical term is. It's not a law anymore, but there was a time where you could only 2 or 3 unrelated adults living in the same premises together, and if not, had to have a B&B license or something. So to know your local laws and whether it's legal or not. So location specific, and then Todd Baldwin, Baldwin, Baldwin. Pedros. The salt mines are called Zipicata. Also check out Santa Marta for scuba diving. We went to Santa Marta sounds familiar, but I forget where we went. I had a friend from the Marine Corps from a million years ago who was teaching English at a college in Columbia. So we kind of had like a live-in guided tour for the whole month. It took us to all the places. So I actually didn't usually know where we are until I knew where Pareto was, because that you don't say it the way it's spelled. Like, it's cool. It kind of stood out. And then Montesalas. So I spent most of the time there, but then, Cartagena being the tourist kind of vacation. That was great. And then my chat moved. Chris, thank you for that. Toledo del Sol. Oh, nice. All-nighter hider. I'm not an SBA lobbyist, but they have grants for those that want to share a financial education with vets. Seems worthy to me, and I'm going to look deeper. Yeah, the problem that you run into is a bunch of investing firms that have investing, not coaches, but financial advisors. And I know this because the last year I was working on JBLM as much as I was the first year where they came out with a more stricter fiduciary responsibility for financial advisors, where licensure was required and things changed, where they would hire vets to teach vets. And it was very predatory. And as soon as I brought up the fact, now they would come to me and they would go, "Oh, you're a veteran and you're working here on the base, you're helping people find jobs. Who's managing your stuff?" And I'd say, "I buy rentals." They would just literally close the doors, walk away, because they would know that if you know the returns you can get in real estate, you're not going to give your money to a financial advisor to do anything with it, because they're going to be the ones that make the money. Whether you make money or lose money, they're making money. Robert Breedlove has the thought that Bitcoin maximalists are a form of self-regulation. Makes sense, as Bitcoin is not like crypto. For the record, I'm not a maxi. Nice. Rob, crypto is Chuck E. Cheese token for built Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. There are people using it for transactions now, though. And try it. All-nighter hider. Yep. All-nighter hider. Physical gold is insurance. It is, but it's not for me. Like, I want like 10 bars of 5 ounces so that I can abscond from the country and go live somewhere else. It's a couple ounces so that, when the zombie apocalypse comes, I have the barter to get to the point where all the people who are prepared, so I can take all their stuff. Play Z-Day online. It's good stuff. Invest to wealth. Howdy. All night hider. I see Bitcoin as an investment, but as a speculative investment, and my allocation reflects that. Yep. So 1 to 5% of it in a portfolio. Sure. Alex, howdy. Do I have an OnlyFans? I have an Only Homes. Not OnlyFans, and people pay me to keep my clothes on. I do not have an OnlyFans. I have a friend who has an OnlyFans. Met her about a year ago. A friend introduced us, said, look, she's got money. She doesn't know what to do with it. So far she's purchased a fourplex and a triplex, all cash, moved. So I don't know anything about it other than she makes a ton of money and she put the money to work in real estate because she's brilliant. She goes, I'm 26. So I have 4 years before this falls apart and I can't do it anymore. So she wants to put her money somewhere where it's going to work. Scott. I'm in second position timeline, giving you negotiation power. Glad to be here. Nice. Awesome. Sierra, howdy. I just walked away from my deal because of the major structural issues on the inspection yesterday. Back on the hunt. No, you know when to not do it. Good call. I've walked away from 2 now in 12 years. So pretty good track record. Price and Pride. Howdy. Do you install smart devices? Nope. Doorbell cam, thermostat, Wi-Fi switches on your properties? I do not. I don't have short-term rentals, and I don't want anything like cameras at my rentals. When they're vacant, yes. I'll do an Arlo and install Wi-Fi, but not when there's a tenant there. I don't do short-term rentals, though. If I did short-term rentals, I'd have a Ring doorbell. I'd have nothing inside, but I'd have something outside. On my fourplex, I guess, I do have some cameras outside, but it's where I park. And the tenants are welcome to put theirs up too. Good question. I think rent by the room. I have an acquaintance has rent by the room, and they have a camera in the common areas. Feels weird to me to have cameras inside. Every time I've been there, I don't even live there. And no smart devices like thermostat. I would definitely have smart devices on short-term rentals where I'm paying for utilities. Right. And not so much to control them, shutting down the electric cars in Russia when they don't do what you want. But I think you can send an email saying, hey, the EULA between us says you can go to 72 degrees and you're at 78 for the last 3 days, whatever. So short-term rentals I would change more so than I have with long. Lumberjack landlord, cost aggregation on Friday, check. And the other thing, if I can remember, was how do we respond when somebody asks us, what do we think of this deal? I'm counting on you to remember because I won't. So yeah, thanks, Lumberjack. Still a great experience walking through the property with the inspector. Worth the money spent for that knowledge. Absolutely, totally agree. And a perfect attitude. And Matt agrees with you. Waleed, howdy. What was your biggest cost to acquire a property? My brother would say his divorce. I would say biggest cost to acquire. So first one, I had like 22,000, and I had some money left after closing and everything. So that wasn't very big. That was a house hack. Then just under 60, then just under 60, just over 60. The biggest cost to acquire would be a toss-up between my fourplex and my triplex. Fourplex was a house hack, 20%. Triplex was an investment, 25%. I think the fourplex was the most money because the triplex, I spent like $200 on it the first year I owned it. Like I knew nothing to that place. Everything just worked and I just bought it. So it was just the down payment, cost to acquire, and closing costs. Immediate repairs was nothing. But like, when did I remember spending, it was the first year, it was $200. And it was like, it was dumb too. It was like the drywall screw on the electric panels. It was the drywall work, not the panel work. So that was like 109,000. The fourplex, because it was 109 down, 108 down, 109 down, so like 590, 20%, whatever that is, math. Plus, I calculated I had to put a roof on it. I had to do some deck repair. There were some other things. So my total cost to acquire, closing costs, immediate repairs, and everything was 141,000 for the fourplex. it's like year 8 of investing. The first 6 years, I never did anything over like little over 60,000 on one. And the first one was less than 20 because with reserves and everything I had 22,000 at the time. So that's kind of the breakdown. I'll do that breakdown when I do the cash flow per year. Kind of, this is what I paid for this property. Here's the cash flow. This is what I was making. This is how it impacted the overall cash flow. So I'll break that down. I might even whiteboard that one. Yep. So that's how much. And when I first started investing, the idea of thinking, oh, I'm going to spend $141,000 and buy a property was astronomical. I would never think that would ever exist at any point in my life. But once the income snowball kicks in, and you have 2 or 3 cash flowing assets, and you are house hacking. So I reduced my expenses, saving all of that money. I still had my side hustles. I was still working overtime because I'm stupid. And I was still working, playing online and selling things online. And I was doing the expert witness testimony, still kind of making money as a side hustle. But then the cash flow from the rental started building up, and I was making more money at that than my W-2. So I was saving 100% of my W-2 and like 60% of the rent. So it started to be, $15,000, $20,000 a month going into the saving account for the next investment after everything. To where when I found the fourplex, it took that 141 repairs and everything took me down to where I had $200 in my accounts total. I had $17,000 in credit cards that had no balance on them. And I had some money in a retirement account because at that point it was just before COVID. I hadn't tapped it out yet. So I had like $80-something thousand in retirement. So they took that 40,000 of, 50% of a reserve will count as words are hard. 50% of your retirement account will count as a reserve in your lender's eyes. You don't have to tap it or take it out. You just have to prove that it's in there. It's yours. It's vetted, has a known source, and it's seasoned. So it's been there for a couple of months. So my reserve was my retirement account at that point. And then that move into the fourplex, so yeah, every penny, $141,000 out the door. Holy cow, right? To a guy who's pretty much never made more than 50,000 in a year until the last couple of years, right? Astronomical number. But here's the income snowball. Close on January 6, 2020. By the end of, so in January, you get what's called prorated rents, fourplex. All units rented. I ended up having to do cash for keys to get one guy out and moved into the one unit because it was an owner-occupied purchase. Actually paid it toward his deposit on the place he was moving to help him make it easier for him. Was renting in the duplex, paying $300 a month towards principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Moved into the fourplex. That unit gets rented out. Now that one at the time, now it's making over $1,000 a unit, but at the time it was cash flowing $800 total. So went from paying $300 to making $800, and then moved into the fourplex and was making $1,700. Now it's making $2,500. So it's $1,700 and $800. I was making $2,500 more a month because I moved. Tax free. Like we say delayed taxes because depreciation will be caught eventually, but it'll be caught after I'm dead. So to me, tax free. To my kids, have fun with that. But then the rents increase. So that income snowball happens to a point where the 141,000 by the end of January, because I got the prorated rents for January, no mortgage payment for February because you have a delay of a month before your mortgage kicks in. And everybody's like, oh, but you're paying interest for January. Yes. 2050 Dion is very upset about the money that I'm going to pay in interest for that month. But 2020 Dion was like, wow, I got like this much money in January, this much money in February, no mortgage payment, and the cash flow from the other rentals, and I'm still working my job. By the end of February, I was way above $10,000 in the saving account from 200 to that. That's why I'm trying to get people on the property ladder to that 4th or 5th or 6th year, so the income snowball kicks in, so that when something like a recession happens, and I try to say this without sounding mean, recessions suck, right? There are people who are barely scraping by who are going to go, my milk is more expensive. My fuel is more expensive. So we're not doing any traveling at all except to work and back. My streaming services are more expensive. So we're going to limit what we want. We're not even entertain ourselves at home. And the one place that we pay to be, our rent is up, right? And all these recession stuff sucks. But if we can get you on the property ladder and we can get you to the income snowball where you have maybe house hacking, don't have to, but that's one of the strategies I'm still using. Cash flowing assets. Last month, so next month's probably I'll do this in February. I'll do a breakdown. Here's what it's like to be retired for January and take a trip to Vegas and plan to pay for the cruise to the Mediterranean, Greece. All this money I'm going to spend. Here's what I saved, right? So last month, let's say everything cost me $1,000 more to do than it did a year ago. So inflation's gone up, my fuels cost more, my insurance costs more, my vehicle costs more, my traveling costs more, whatever. So I spend $1,000 more. I'm going to save $1,000 less. It doesn't cost me anymore. I'm just saving less. That's the power of the income snowball. And last month it was around $13,000, maybe $12,000, something. I haven't done the exact math yet on increased savings for the next purchase. So if inflation really impacted me, like just kicked me in the teeth, I'd only save $11,000. Like that sucks, right? But the person, like, so I get the recession sucks for the person who's like barely scraping by. They have to live somewhere. If we can get them into a house hack. And instead of the vacations, the trip to Greece, the Vegas, the Thailand, the Colombia, none of that happened the first 5 years, like period. I don't think I might have had a weekend here or there. Most of them I'd work a Saturday if I could, doing something, right, to produce income to get to the income snowball so I could do this now. And that's not to say, look how successful I'm in. It's to say, look at the position I was in and how much it sucked. And all I did was 5 to 10 years of investing, starting from a really bad position. Maybe you're in a better position. You could be in this position with better hair. Cost segregation and real estate professional are different, right? But to do cost segregation and have it benefit against your W-2, we'll break that down on Friday. Because you can use cost segregation against your rental income, but for me, it doesn't make sense because I'd just be carrying forward a bigger loss. But I would have loved to have been a real estate professional against my W-2 income these last couple of years. I just wasn't. I think we're about to wrap up here in a little bit. So if you have any questions you want to get in last minute, make sure you get them in there. Scott, howdy. Have you done any learning that you can write off this year? Yes, the entire trip to one rental at a time, going to a real estate meetup, all of that is a write-off. I paid for Chandler David Smith's course, taking that to do a review. Yeah, so I'm going to do courses on self-education. YouTube Premium is a write-off because I self-educate from YouTube University, and I'm going to be like, IRS agent, fight me on that because this freedom came from here. All of my trips, I'm going to do a write-off for YouTube against that income, which is not much. So I don't think that's going to trigger any kind of, other than automated audit, probably. Income from rentals could get another audit. I've been audited once with rentals. And that was actually pay the $150 a year for the protection from your CPA. So it's a them problem. And you just get them the data they need. Rob, are you seeing price drops in your area that even come somewhat close to offset the rise of cost of capital? Nope, they're going up. The one deal I saw that made sense that I got accepted, it was because it needed so much work and it wouldn't qualify for lending that no one else could touch it. It was going to have to be an all cash offer. So I was looking all cash, and then it was too much work for me. I mean, hard money or some creative, I think it was too much work for a 203K even on what it needed. But everyone that goes, oh, my market's crashing. Yes, wish list prices are coming down. If I saw a property right now, 20% above where it was last year, I'd buy it all cash. I'd buy it with a mortgage. I don't care. They're not. I purchased a duplex in 2021 in May for what was offered, listed for 400, paid 400. Closed at $2,500 less, negotiated $2,500 off. So around 400,000. So if I could find that duplex now anywhere for 480, I'd jump all over it. With a 6% mortgage in my area, it would cash flow. They're 580. They're 600. So it's going to take a 10 or 20% drop to even get close to where I want to start running the numbers on them, or rents to change or something. So yeah, prices haven't dropped. To adjust for cost of capital, prices haven't dropped to where the interest rate I had last year would make sense. Like I think that's at like a 3.8 or a 4% interest rate or something. It was like right around 4 when I did. It's an investment, it's a small multifamily, so I got 2 bumps from where you would have got it if you got a mortgage on your primary house where you live, right? So I was a full point above the average mortgage. Yeah, I would love to see prices come down. Doesn't mean that it's going to come down when I buy. I'm going to find a deal where prices are still high. My friend bought that 555 duplex where it made sense, but she got a better interest. She got like 3%, 3.1% interest rate on hers. So it made more sense even at that amount than the one I got 2 years before. Cody Evers, to anyone in the group. Seeing anyone in the group seeing price drops on reasonably priced properties. Like the only price drops I've seen are on outrageous wish list. So wish list pricing down, great way of putting it. And Lauren living here in Tacoma, prices are still high. Yep. Yep. Same with All Nighter Hider in San Diego. One of the biggest impacts to San Diego was an article that me and Zuber did a video on the 10 places people are moving out of. And the 10 places people are moving to. We did a reaction to it. I think it was a Redfin article. And a lot of them are moving out of New York, Seattle, Los Angeles. So a lot of people are like, oh, they're moving out of blue states. They must be going to red states. And I just demonetized this entire video. Thank you for colors. But that's not what's happening. Remote working means a lot of the people in LA County are moving down to the San Diego area and can work remotely 1 or 2 days a week in the office. So you have that significant demand happening in San Diego, like we have here in Tacoma. So yes, I don't think you're going to see prices drop there very soon, but you might see some prices drop in the next year in certain markets. So I want to thank all of you for hanging out. I hope you have a 2023 full of marvelous. And I look forward to seeing some of you on the lives in the next couple of days. If you can't make it to the lives, see you in the replays in Futureland. Until my next video, my cup is empty. Sad day. Thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.